Great to have you with us on Dub Zone today. We're in Newcastle with the Liberty A-League back at number 2 Sports Ground as the Jets welcome Sydney FC to the northern end of the F3. The Jets are flying high after closing out 2022 with a 2-0 win over Adelaide. They'll have their work cut out for them today against a Sky Blues side riding a 5-match winning streak. The Barbie is on in Newey. Look, the weather doesn't look great, but not too bad for a game of Liberty A-League football. Welcome to Dub Zone. It is awesome to have your company this Saturday afternoon. My name is Neve Owens. A very happy new year to you. The first time we've got to see you in 2023. And it is lovely to be here alongside our socials expert, Kat Haddad. Hello.
Hello, happy new year. How are you all doing?
Very good to see you. And the voice of the Liberty A-League, Teo Palazzeri. Hey, Teo.
Great to see you again, Neve.
Nice to see you too, Teo. And our Liberty A-League W League record holder, Teresa Polias. Hello.
Hello, and it's great to be back.
Even wearing sky blue today. Is that a message for us early?
Oh, look, it's not really intended to.
Oh, sure it isn't. Which leads us very nicely, Kat, into our opening poll of the day, I think. And a sky blue featuring in that as well.
There is. So we have the Coach of the Month poll, which is active on Keep Up right now. And there's 4 very special coaches who are in the lineup for this award: Vidicic, Torcaso, Juric and Hopkins. And what I want to know is, when Teresa takes her Sydney FC cap off, who do you think is worthy of this award?
Oh, look, Ante surely has a case for this.
I'm shocked to hear it.
No, I'm just purely, out of consistency over a number of years, and he's yet to receive much recognition for it. Even, the transition of the league, and he's still remained top. He's got a bunch of new players in this season, and they've fit in seamlessly. So just purely, I believe he deserves the recognition. So my pick's Ante.
Do you agree, Teo?
No, I don't. I'm going to go a little bit counterintuitive here. I think Dario Vidicic and Melbourne City played the best football. They may have lost head-to-head against Western United, but they've created a crazy amount of XG. They have the most creativity. They dominate possession, and they want to play the right way. And I think Dario Vidicic's ethos deserves to be recognised and rewarded for that reason.
I love that even as you've gone out and put forward your case, you've managed to flat bat the comeback, which is, of course, that Western United and Mark Torcaso have to be there in the running. They've taken maximum points from every game in their debut A-League women's season. And Kat, using the likes of Chloe Legerz, their marquee signing, the Matilda in their squad, so wisely in her return from injury. Surely Torcaso is there or thereabouts.
For me, absolutely. I'm actually holding the Coach of the Month award right now. If I could hand it straight to Torcaso right now, I would. And don't be fooled, I do support Sydney FC, even though I'm really giving Western United vibes today. But I think he's just done an amazing job at bringing this, what is essentially a Calder United team, who did really well in the NPL, and they've found a way to be in the top 4 in the Liberty A-Leagues and shown such a smooth transition and utilising players like Chloe as well. But don't forget that you can vote for Coach of the Month on keepup.com.au. We want to know what you think as well. So #DubZone, let us know your thoughts. Is your favourite coach actually missing from that list as well? Let us know what you think.
We intend to continue to argue about it for the rest of the afternoon. So we would love to have your input as well with that #DubZone. Let us know what you are thinking. And we do recognise as well, no female coaches in that W League, Liberty A-League Coach of the Month for December. We've got 3 Liberty A-League female coaches this season. We'll be having a chat with Ray Dower a little bit later on about that female coaching pathway, about what it looks like, about how we can improve it. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation as well, Kat, as a continuation of the Player of the Month. And that is a much hotly contested contest as well.
It sure is. And December Player of the Month will look starkly different to January Player of the Month. And that is a lot to do with a bunch of injuries for these lovely ladies, but it's an incredible lineup that you can see here. We've got Maria Jose Rojas, Alex Chidiac, Remy Simpson, who's now off to somewhere that we're yet to know exactly where that is, Amina Ekic, Sydney Cummings, Riley Baisden, Casey Dumont, Melina Ayres, Mel Barbieri and Jada Wyman.
Are you voting for Sydney Cummings just because she's been your fantasy points hero of the opening round?
She's gotten me a bucket load, but she's been fantastic. She scored 2 goals for her team as well, and she's the only defender on that list. So she's got my pick. She's been fantastic for the new team.
Which brings us to the match week 9 fixtures. Teo, we had a game last night. We've got 2 simultaneous kickoffs the Savo. What have we got to look forward to?
Yes, 1-1 between Melbourne Victory and Perth Glory yesterday. Dub Zone will focus on Newcastle against Sydney and Western United hosting Wellington Phoenix. Later tonight on 10 Play and Paramount Plus, you can watch Adelaide against Canberra. And then tomorrow afternoon, Western Sydney against Melbourne City. It's bye week for the Brisbane Roar.
And the Liberty A-League ladder, we've got 3 teams on 15 points and 2 of them in action at the Savo, including Western United, who are yet to drop points, Teo, and still have a game in hand.
That's right. And depending on Sydney's result, Western can go top if they run up the score against Wellington today. So they have every incentive to show no mercy. Wellington, you see there at the bottom of the ladder. Newcastle's an interesting one. If they win today and then maybe Canberra gets a result of Adelaide later, then it really compresses around 4th spot and the finals door remains ajar for a number of teams.
It is a while since the Newcastle Jets managed to string together back-to-back wins, but as we have a look at the lineups and start with the Newcastle Jets Sydney FC game, Teo, they won at number 2 Sports Ground last week and broke a run of 10 games at home without taking 3 points out of fixture.
And they got a clean sheet as well, which is why it's such a shame that Georgina Worth is out sick. Claire Coelho is in, but potentially carrying an injury. So watch out for Emma Olsen, the 18-year-old goalie on the bench. Tessa Tamplin's back from her hamstring injury. She has a spot on the bench as well. Kirsty Fenton's out for 3 weeks with a knee injury for Sydney FC. Anna Green, the New Zealand international, is added to the bench. Deborah Ann Della Harp is into the starting 11. What do you make of those lineups? It's so disruptive for Newcastle to lose their goalkeeper after finally getting a clean sheet.
It is after such an important win last week. But look, Claire Coelho, she's no stranger. She's played against Sydney as well before. And they're all just, I guess the energy would be high after a fantastic win last week. So it's not going to be an easy game for Sydney today.
Crucially, though, still no Sarah Griffith, still no Murphy Agnew, the 2 American imports for the Newcastle Jets, both still out injured. They were able to win without them last week, but it does put so much responsibility on Adriana Konyaski, on Tara Andrews to lead the line there in the absence of those imports, which are there to lift the standard.
It does, but again, last week they did it without them. And they did an incredible job. And, something to note is once Lauren Allen was injected into the game, things changed and she was immense for them.
Joined us on Dub Zone last week. We'll see whether she can add another couple of goals there at number 2 Sports Ground to her list today. From a Sydney FC perspective, Teo, unlike the Jets, they have been so tight defensively throughout this season, conceded just 2 goals and are such a difficult team to beat.
And we get to learn so much more about their defence today because Jada Wyman is out for now 6 weeks with that finger fracture. Katie Offer gets the gloves today, and Charlotte McLean there you see in the graphic. She's part of this defence which has only conceded 2 goals in 8 games. If you're not familiar with XG, it's an aggregation of the quality of chances that you create. So per 90 minutes, they're not even giving up the equivalent of 1 goal per game. And for the entire season, they have the best goals expected against in the league by a huge amount, only 4.88. That is number 1 in the league by far. So Teresa, how much of this was Jada and how much of this are the Sydney defenders? I guess we get our answer today now that they've put a different goalkeeper in and they're going to have to go with someone other than Jada for an extended amount of time.
Look, having experience with all those players, they are a unit. And I can't speak highly enough of Charlotte McLean. She is an unsung hero in that Sydney team and doesn't get the recognition she deserves, in my view. But it'll be very interesting. Katie Offer coming in. She's got great protection in front of her, though, and she knows the team very well over the last few years. So today will give us some answers.
So the big question is, that entire Sydney defence, there's not one capped Australian Matilda there. Ali Green got called up to the New Zealand national team after last season, but at the moment we don't have a single player in the Matildas. Kirsty Fenton is one I've advocated for quite strongly. She's now going to miss 3 weeks with this injury. Nat Tobin, Charlotte McLean. What do they actually need to do to get into the conversation? At what point do we say, hang on, this team is the best performing defence by so far? At what point do we acknowledge that?
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre, to be honest. Their defence has been incredible over the last 2-3 seasons and beyond that. So, yeah, I'm not sure what they need to do. But you know what? All they can do is is worry about what they can control, and what they can control is their own performances. And hopefully, if they keep, performing as strongly as they are, that they'll get an opportunity.
It's such an interesting discussion, isn't it? Because sometimes we hear Jada Wyman not respected at that same level in terms of the clean sheets she keeps because of the defensive line that is in front of her. But from a Matilda's perspective, Tay, you can't bring in the whole defensive line. So are they there as a unit? Is that how they work so well together? Or are there individuals who are taking their performances to the next level?
Well, if it's as a unit, then I guess Teresa gets to take a victory lap early, because who's responsible for it being a unit? The coach.
But also it's their ability as individuals to respect each other and, take on board the team's values and implement them. If you took any one of those out of the Sydney team, put them into another team, they'd be just as good. And I believe on the international level, they'd be fantastic given the opportunity.
You haven't taken your victory lap there, Teresa, and absolutely brought it back to Ante Huge. So make sure you continue to vote at #Dubzone. Let us know who you think the manager of the month is. Teo, as we have a look at our other simultaneous kickoff, the Savo, we've got Western United up against Wellington Phoenix, and one change for each of these sides. And the player we spoke about earlier, Chloe Legerz, not featuring at all today, on the bench or otherwise.
Yeah, a real selection bombshell. She's out due to load management because they wanted to start and play the full 90 midweek against Sydney FC. So today, no Chloe Legerz. In comes Amy Medwin to the starting 11. Franny Iamano and TJ Vlanic added to the bench. Legerz and Julia Sardo drop out. For the Wellington Phoenix, there's no Betsy Hassett. Emma Ralston is back. Otherwise, no changes from the team that drew 1-1 against Western Sydney Wanderers. Is this hubris from Western United to leave Legerz out in anticipation of a perceived more difficult game against Sydney FC in 5 days' time?
It's an interesting one because Chloe's character, I think she'd want to be available for every game. So I'd love to know whose sort of idea that was and who sort of forced that scenario there. But a very interesting one.
3 games in 8 days for Western United. So you can understand the squad management, but when it's your star, Matilda, that's the name that grabs us first. But in her absence, I mean, Western United, they've leaned so heavily on players that had never played in this league before prior to the start of the season. And top of the list has got to be Alana Cern. We saw her warming up there. She's played at centre-back. She's played every minute of the season, Teresa. And she only turned 20 in December as well. Wow. So she started the season as a teenager. This is one of the players that the teams in Melbourne, hey, they could have signed her. They could have bought her in. But here she is starring as a 20-year-old for Western.
I mean, where has Alana Cern been previous to this season? Incredible. The whole setup there has been just incredible. They're doing something, I think, out of the ordinary at Western United to be producing the results that they are.
Now, we're not saying cap her now, but someone like Alana Cern, who's on this upward trajectory but is already too old for the young Matildas, this is where the importance of the Australia Under-23 team becomes paramount, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's something missing in the system. And I'm not saying, an Under-23s game or two are here and there. It needs to be consistent games that are given to players in that age bracket, that they're too old for the youth system, perhaps not quite ready for the senior team, but there's so many players in that bracket that they need to be given something.
Danielle Steer, a new signing for Western United as well, who I'm sure we'll talk more about throughout the game. She is the grand niece of Dawn Fraser, has that Aussie passport, which she's putting to very good use. But as we have a look at Wellington ahead of kickoff, Teo, they got 1 point, their first point of the season last week, and their coach felt they were unlucky not to get more out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, they really controlled the game when they were 1-0 up for 15 minutes in the second half and then conceded against the run. And then Western Sydney Wanderers had the best chance to win the match before the end. So at least they're off the mark here, Teresa, but no Betsy Hassett today. She's off at a wedding. And they bring Emma Ralston back. Still no Paige Satchel. If anything, it's a more familiar team to the one we saw last season. Admittedly, they didn't get the best results then, but I mean, at least they will have some confidence. And also, they did score against Western United and keep that game 1-1 through 70 minutes last time they met over in New Zealand.
Yeah, look, I think it was a fair result, the draw against Western Sydney last week. In terms of their team week in, week out, I just feel like every week there's a few changes which might be hurting them a bit, whether it's injury or, other commitments. But, yeah, look, they need to just develop a bit of consistency in their lineup, I think, in order to move forward and start producing consistent performances and creating chances.
I think of you as our very own wedding crasher on this couch, Kat. I mean, you have a wedding every second weekend. What do you think? Should Rosie White, the New Zealand international, know better than to schedule a wedding during the Dubs season?
You know what? I'm very fortunate that as somebody who, like I told you before, I could have my own version of 27 dresses. I've been a bridesmaid that many times. I'm ethnic. It's just the reality of it. Teresa understands as well. But I think there comes a time where a wedding just has to take priority. It's someone that you're close with, and it's one of the beautiful things about life. But it is a shame when it overlaps with the football calendar. What can you do? And Neve, I know that something we both have in common is that we both have weddings on Saturdays in February, and we may not be able to come to Dub Zone for that reason.
That's it. So no criticism from us. Absolutely leave pass guaranteed. As we have a look ahead of kickoff Dub Zone, we will bring you, and Teo Palizzeri will call all the highlights, the big moments, the goals from these two games this afternoon. So we very much hope that you can stay with us here on 10 Play. If you want to take a deep dive into one of these games in their own right, they are on 10 Play and Paramount Plus with a full call of all of the action. But Teo will be focusing to begin with at number 2 Sports Ground, where there's been some early action.
Yeah, there's been a goal in the first 30 seconds. Madison Haley has rolled it into the back of the net. We mentioned that there were issues with the Newcastle goalkeeping situation, but they have made the perfect start, and all that goodwill for Newcastle from last week seemingly up in smoke. Not even a minute on the clock. This is extraordinary. We're going to have to take another look at this here, Teresa.
There you
because
go, Ante Juric's team, guys.
So here's how it started. Newcastle, what was it, an errant back pass here that's led to them becoming unstuck. I'll have to wait and see exactly how this shaked out. Courtney Vine with the pass inside here. Sydney FC, fairly patient build-up. I think in fact, this might actually be, is it live play or a replay? No, it was just a slip here at the centre of defence. And then Claire Coelho caught in no man's land, not able to go to ground. And Madison Haley strolling in as easy as you like for the opening goal. And that is so costly,
Oh,
Teresa.
look, Madison Haley just pounced on that error there, and absolutely costly for Newcastle. We've seen when they concede early, they just struggle to get back into games, so could be disastrous for them.
And for Claire Coelho, who comes into the side for Georgie Worth today, we know she's been in and out of the side this season. How tough a start to a game is that for a goalkeeper to get your head back in the game then and understand you got almost 90 minutes to go?
Yeah, look, really tough, and this is going to be a big test of Newcastle's character today, so they need to sort of maybe put this behind them. It's very early on. I mean, we're talking first minute or two, so big test of their character today for sure.
5-5 for Madison Haley, and to be honest, she's doing so well. I know that's not so much her brilliant play as it was a Newcastle mistake, but with this sort of record, Sydney FC are going to really struggle to keep her from going back to the NWSL. I mean, this is a player who was in the US women's national team in 2019. Let's stay with this chance here as Hawkesby is nearly played through. Newcastle scrambling in defence, but this is a player who was called up to the US women's national team, got injured, so didn't get that first cap, and then opted to go back for an extra year of eligibility at college due to COVID, rather than turn pro immediately and go to the NWSL. So Sydney FC, they'll kind of be desperately hoping that Madison Haley can actually stay right through until the grand final and doesn't have to leave in February like the other players that are going back to America.
Yeah, I think it'll be disastrous, having lost Remy Simpson as well, if they have to let Madison Haley go. And we haven't heard whether she needs to go back.
Well, Sydney are in again. Sarah Hunter, it's 2.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no, the record books are shaking here after only 3 minutes. Sarah Hunter is on a scoring streak of her own. That's 3 for the season now in game number 7. Pretty good going from midfield. And Newcastle look absolutely shambolic to start this game.
And Stephen Paletti just wrote on Twitter, it's good to be treated to a Sydney goal. Checks notes, 35 seconds in.
Wow.
You can make that 2 goals, Stephen.
Well, we saw how heavily strapped Claire Coelho there was round the left thigh. Is she fit to play? Are they going to have to make a sub? 18-year-old emerging Jets goalkeeper, a Melburnian originally, Emma Olsen, would be making her A-League women's debut if they have to bring her on. But if your goalie can't move, Teresa, they're going to have to make this change.
Well, she struggled to even dive in that Sarah Hunter's shot, so yeah, she's looking like she's moving a bit gingerly there, so we'll have to see if Newcastle make a change.
That is 20 goals conceded for Newcastle 9 rounds into the season. How concerning is that from a Newcastle perspective?
It's concerning because, they had such a great game last week, and to go from that to this now, it's, in the first 4 or 5 minutes, it's just, Yeah, very, very, very concerning for Newcastle.
I mean, I suggested if Western United wanted to run up the score today against Wellington, they could overtake Sydney FC on goal difference. I mean, good luck. This is looking like Sydney FC is going to extend their goal difference and go and chase Melbourne City instead.
Yeah, and you mentioned with Madison Haley's goal that it was a Newcastle mistake, but make no mistake, Madison Haley is waiting for those opportunities to pounce.
Absolutely.
So I that was all her in my view.
Yeah, she's so cool, calm and collected when she scores and when she has the ball. And that is such a testament to her experience and what she brings to that side as well, because it is something that makes her stand out for me as a striker.
And I've got both scorers in my fantasy.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, getting that in nice and early. That experience point is such an important one, isn't it? Because, Teresa, they've managed to not just score in the opening 30 seconds, but to consolidate that goal with a second, which absolutely puts the boot in and the foot on the throat from a Sydney perspective.
Yeah, definitely. It's very hard to bounce back from this so early in the game. But, you know, like I said, it's a test of Newcastle's character now. They need to settle and really, you know, get a hold of this game. But Sydney are gunning for that top spot on goal difference, I think, Teo.
They might have to. Melbourne City had already built up quite a record so far this season, and Newcastle just can't keep the ball at the moment. So, I mean, there's more players than just the goalkeeper out there. They look totally shaken at the moment. Here's Deborah Ann Della Harp restored to the starting 11 with Kirsty Fenton out, and it's such a competitive Sydney team.
Yeah,
it is.
I guess
it's like for like, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really reflective of the depth they've built in the squad. That New Zealand international Anna Green is sitting on the bench and has just been totally left out of the squad. But Ante Juric is a pretty ruthless coach like that, isn't he?
Yeah, look, you know, whoever's in form, he'll pick. And yeah, he's not afraid to leave you out if, you know, you're not up to scratch in any area of the game.
Yeah, but we discussed this last week. That's how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should never, as
definitely.
a player, feel like your position is 100% guaranteed, because being too comfortable is potentially something that diminishes your performance to some extent.
So true.
Not knowing whether or not you're going to get to play a full 90 the next week is motivation to put your best foot forward every time you are on the pitch.
Yeah, and in training and off the pitch as well. And you can see the desperation Sydney have been playing with lately, the intensity. I think, you know, he's let his troops know that you're all on notice always, and it's showing.
And the fact that Sarah Hunter has managed to score in the Hunter Valley, our Twitter followers are absolutely loving that.
I saw a comment saying Sarah Hunter.
They're in again.
Hunter.
They're in again, and it's 3, and it's Mackenzie Hawkesby.
There you go.
So I'm going to say it. The record win in this league, I believe, is 11-1. So let's just put that in the back of our memories here. I'm going to have to reach for the record books because this is just knife through butter. Newcastle defence completely absent. And again, I'm not sure there's much Claire Coelho could have done there. Courtney Vine, I believe, has 2 assists. Mackenzie Hawkesby, just a nice little slide rule finish. I mean, it's good play by Sydney, but Newcastle are offering no resistance here.
None whatsoever. Yeah, this could be one for the record books, Teo.
We spoke about Ante Juric off the top tee. What about Ash Wilson right now in this moment? Her team in all sorts of trouble here at home, in front of their home fans, down 3 goals inside 10 minutes. As a coach, what do you do in this situation?
That's a great question, Neve. You know, I think Ash Wilson's tried a number of things in the last few weeks. You know, it doesn't help when you've got your key players out. Murphy Agnew, Sarah Griffiths out. Yeah, look, the pressure's on Ash Wilson. That's, you know, that's how it is at the moment. And I don't know if she's called over one of the leaders to just go out there and give some instruction, but it's a bit of a unique situation here. So, yeah, it's high pressure at the moment.
Okay, round 7, 2011-12 season, 3rd of December 2011. Sydney 11, Perth 0. Did you play in that game?
What year was that?
December 3,
I don't
2011.
think I played. I think I was at the Mariners.
At the Mariners?
I think.
Okay.
I feel like an 11-0.
You think I'm going to look up the team sheet and make 100%
but I feel like
sure.
an 11-0 performance you'd remember.
No, I remember the game. I just don't remember if I was there.
So 11-0's the record. We've had a 10-1, Perth beating Western Sydney, and a 10-2, Adelaide also beating Western Sydney.
I remember the 10-2 as well, but I just don't know if I was at Sydney at that point. Yeah.
It's all right. I'm sure Tay will be able to tell us. He'll reach back into that record book as he tip-taps away there. It's a remarkable early scoreline, Kat, and one from a Sydney FC perspective. We saw them up 3-0 at halftime last week against the Brisbane Roar. The second half, they didn't put the Roar away. Is this an opportunity now today for them to take that next step and show that level of ruthlessness?
I mean, to be 3 up in less than 10 minutes is pretty ruthless already. And I think, look, there's always that argument that sometimes scoring too soon can be a disadvantage, because are they going to let their guard down? Are they going to get too comfortable? We know, we've seen the Jets do it before. The box office Jets, labelled that for a reason. They can pull off something pretty remarkable at the last minute.
Here we go. Lauren Allen is in. The square ball. It's 3-1. Box office Jets. Here we go. And it's Adriana Konyaski. That is a heartwarming moment. Her first goal since returning to the Liberty A-League. Newcastle born and bred, and has had such a hard time with body image and bulimia, getting back to full fitness. And here she is scoring a goal that gives Newcastle some hope. It's 3-1.
I rest my case.
You said it, Kat. And look, just what the Jets and Konjaski needed. We just spoke about what Ash Wilson was thinking, and she would have been thinking we need to score here. And look, good character from the Jets to score one back.
As a player, obviously it's a long way back from here, but is that moment, that goal, is that a settling moment for a side?
For sure. After being 3-0 down, this could change the game. It could. I think Sydney just have a bit too much of a hold, but it will help the Jets for sure.
Yeah. I think I was also going to say earlier, conceding early is not a great thing, but at the end of the day, they're only 10 minutes into this game. We've seen 4 goals on the score sheet. We know that if Newcastle give it a good go, they can score a couple. I think we're just going to see a bit of a back and forth today by the looks of it, because it seems to be the case so far.
It could be. It could be. There is a long time to go, but the concern is Claire Coelho. Is she fit enough to stay on and to do the job that needs to be done?
This is Adriana Konyaski's first goal under her married name. Previously hadn't scored in the A-League Women's since playing for Melbourne City back in 2019. And I think it was New Year's Day 2019. So she's been waiting for 3 years to score a goal in this league, and had previously scored 9 in a season for Adelaide United. So definitely had a great record when she was earlier in her career, but it's now at 27 years of age. Great to see her back and scoring goals.
And I think she's had a couple of years off in between.
Yeah, has been out of the league, has been playing in the local league in Newcastle, and just got that appetite for it again. And you know, when you've got the talent, it's all about getting the bug and the match fitness back, and here it is.
Yeah, good on.
Absolutely.
Should we check in at City Vista Recreation Park and see what's happening in Western Wellington, or are we loath to take our eyes off number 2?
As long as we don't miss any goals. Of course, we don't miss any of the goals here on the Dub Zone. But yeah, 11, almost 12 minutes in now at City Vista. It's a very windy ground. You can see the surface is a little patchy as well, but I've been told that it plays pretty well. Don't be too fooled by the splotches there. Only the one shot for both teams, both off target so far. So this game has been a bit more of an arm wrestle so far in the contest to date. But, I mean, Kat, it was a game where we had a clear favourite and a clear underdog. And I think Wellington, other than their own fans, were pretty friendless today. So as we see a shot go wide here, the longer they can keep this 0-0, it might start to get Western United a little bit nervous.
Absolutely. I think that's the trick, isn't it? And it's the opposite of what we're seeing in the other game. The longer you can kind of hold off conceding a goal, I think it's better. It's mind tricks at the very least, and it's showing that you've come in with your best foot forward. But I do want to shout out some of the Kiwi fans who are watching and who have called out that they're excited to be able to tune into Dub Zone now, which is so exciting, and it's so awesome to know that you guys can now enjoy your Wellington games with Dub Zone alongside. And so keep hashtagging Dub Zone. Let us know your thoughts on the game. I do think that this one will be a Western United win. They'll come out of the woodworks and do what they do best and score some goals here, I think.
A good tweet there a moment ago from a member of the Sydney FC family who's at Allianz Stadium and absolutely loving what they're seeing in Newey so far.
Yeah, they're in for an exciting game, I think. And, you know, what do fans love seeing more than anything? Goals. So
absolutely,
they're in for it today.
So, the record, Teresa, I've got some bad news for you. Your memory's shot. You've played 81 minutes in that game.
Oh, I did. I was going to say, I think I did play because I remember thinking there were 11 goals and I didn't score one of them.
I wasn't
sure.
It was Leichhardt Oval, and now the damage was primarily done by Kylie Ledbrook, who scored 1, 2, 3. We also had Renee Rollison scored 3, a hat-trick as well. There was a Tanya Oxtoby-owned goal, and Lena Karmas helped herself to a hat-trick, and then Kaya Simon scored the lucky last one, number 11.
What a team, right?
Yeah, great team.
I didn't need a score goal.
Lots of Matildas back then. But, yeah, you played 81 minutes
Okay, yeah.
out of that game. So it was, to be fair, it was only 9-0 when you got subbed off.
Oh, well, you know.
No wonder you
It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah.
And you were part of a Sydney FC that won a whole heap of games. I mean, that tradition continues in the Sky Blues jersey, but obviously you won enough games to forget about an 11-0
Yeah,
victory.
no, I do remember the game. I just wasn't sure if I was there. So I don't know what's worse.
Well, speaking of Sydney FC, Michelle Morris is a huge Sydney FC supporter and is also one of the drivers behind the Ladies League. And it's her birthday, so this couldn't be a better birthday present for her than to see Sydney FC re-up in 15 or so minutes.
I hope she hasn't spoken too soon.
I know. Michelle, come on. Be careful. Don't jinx yourself.
We had a Jets fan a moment ago saying, so you're saying there's a chance.
There's always a chance.
Always.
That's the beauty of
It's
this
football.
game.
All right, so recapping the scores. Western and Wellington, rather calm by contrast, 0-0 through 15 minutes, 3-1 up in Newcastle. And that game, if anything, has calmed down just a little bit here. We're seeing Cassidy Davis, the Iron Woman of the A-League Women's, has not missed a game since debut. Wow. However, a clash of heads here has got her in a bit of a spot of bother. She has played 119 consecutive games now, Cassidy Davis. So basically a mainstay of the Newcastle team. And the last thing they would want is for her to go off injured here, because they need some leadership in order to provide a bit of resistance. But we've got a Sydney FC free kick coming up. And as we know, on a windy day, plus Mackenzie Hawkesby, that makes for a very dangerous situation.
It does. Yeah, Mackenzie Hawkesby, she's on set-piece duty and she's done a fantastic job.
Here's a look at the clash of heads again with her own teammate, Tara Andrews, it seems, leaning in there. Andrews has got up okay, though, thankfully. And Sydney FC go backwards from the free kick. Here's Shay Holman dropping a ball into the penalty area. A bit of a clash of bodies. Sarah Hunter wanted a penalty kick there, but Newcastle are able to prevail with the ball. So they're holding on for now. We've seen the score ticking over at such a rapid rate. I'll give you some of the stats, Teresa. Can tell you that Sydney FC, all 3 shots on goal on target so far. Newcastle have scored from their only shot on target as well. And you're probably going to enjoy this, T, because you're not a fan of the old XG. Newcastle's XG is 0.82 because Adriana Konyaski had a tap in. Sydney FC's XG from the 3 goals is only 0.55. So they've actually produced some pretty good finishes. I mean, we said it was a good finish from Mackenzie Hawkesby. Obviously, the XG may be telling us a few fibs today. It's your second victory lap of the afternoon.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to ever warm up to this XG thing, but look, I'm happy for you to keep teaching me every week.
I'll keep trying.
And maybe by the end of the season, I'll be on board.
I reckon a stat we can get around is Cass Davis and her consecutive games.
I was going to say,
for Newcastle.
that's unheard of.
It is remarkable.
Is brilliant.
And it is a record across the A-League. Very possibly.
I've never heard of this.
But particularly remarkable, T, I feel like you're the perfect person to speak to this as our W-League appearance record holder. A-League's women's now as well. That level of consecutive games over that number of seasons, as a female player in particular, is such testament to the way you're keeping your body in fit, in fighting condition for years on end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, given I missed a few through a few too many yellow cards here and there. But yeah, look, that's a phenomenal stat, and hat off to Cassidy Davis to do that consecutively, not missing a game.
Crazy.
And that's between seasons too. Keeping herself fit, and she's an absolute hero of the Jets setup.
It's the most consecutive games I've heard in Australia. I do know Iñaki Williams, who plays for Atletico Bilbao in La Liga men's, has played 240 consecutive games. And it takes a lot for him not to play. And it makes you think it's probably a similar situation for Cassidy, where she has to be in dire straits not to play.
Yeah,
and they'll probably do everything they can to be fit for their games, and shows a real love of the game. I love to see that.
Definitely.
It's the number of years it takes to notch up that stat from an A-League women's perspective, though, as well. I don't know how many games a season we have in La Liga, but it's a whole heap more than we have in the Liberty A-League.
Absolutely.
So long, and, moving forward, it'll be much quicker for players, which is nice, and good for the game going forward in terms of building experience for players too. It's such a positive thing.
How are our poll results going, Kat, for our coach of the month? We want to hear from
Let
you
me
guys at
check
home
it
using
out.
that hashtag DubZone. 4 coaches to choose from. We chose 3 different ones on the couch. Poor Jeff Hopkins didn't get a mention. Maybe he will from you using that hashtag DubZone throughout the afternoon.
Why didn't any of us say Hopkins? What do we think is missing from that victory perspective that we wouldn't say that they are definitely in the running for something like that?
He's pulling the same trick he did last season. They're playing possum. He'll crawl into 4th and then bang in the finals. They'll go and win the title in three-peat. I mean, last season, I don't think anyone would have picked him as coach of the year. It was a great achievement to get victory into 4th spot, but then all of a sudden the grand final's over. Hopkins has got, champagne in the trophy, and he's done it again. I mean, and this is someone who is now the most successful coach in the league's history, T. So, I mean, when you say Ante Juric maybe doesn't get the love, is it kind of just a bit easy to default to Jeff Hopkins and saying he's coach of the month, he's coach of the year, he's the best coach in the league?
Look, Jeff's a fantastic coach, and any player you ask that's been coached by him adores him. But at the moment, form-wise, I don't think Melbourne Victory are playing their best football. That's
Fair
purely
enough.
why I didn't consider Jeff Hopkins. They will probably get there. It is Jeff Hopkins at the end of the day. But at the moment, I just don't feel like they are where they should be.
Well, we do have, as Neve said, we do have a poll on the A-League, Liberty A-League Twitter right now. And looking at those results, it is in fact Mark Torcaso who's leading the way with 30.8%. Not far behind is Juric, which you'll be very happy to know, and Jeff Hopkins, who are both on 24 and 27% respectively. Bit of stitch at the back.
Okay,
How about that?
I'm
Is
flying
it
the
too
flag.
soon, Teo? Do you
Flying the
think
flag for Melbourne
They've
City.
had a good month. I'm flying the flag for Dario.
I'm not convinced yet. Righto just left.
Yeah. Let's also remember, you are a Melbourne boy, aren't
Maybe
you? at heart?
maybe that's a factor in why I think he's coach of the month too.
Yeah.
Just quietly, yeah.
So I copped it for picking Ante.
No, not being from Melbourne because he replaced Rado.
Yeah.
Ray Dower has been good enough to join us on DubZone the Savo. She's the FA Technical Director. She's the head coach of the Under-17 Australia side and a former Matilda herself. Ray, hello. It is so good to see you.
Yeah, Happy New Year, host of the World Cup. New Year to everyone.
A very happy new year to you as well. We've been talking about our coach of the month and recognising the fact, Ray, that there are no females in terms of that Liberty A-League coach of the month in December. I want to talk to you about that because I know you have had a huge part to play in this over time in Australian football. We know there are so many female coaches with the qualifications behind them. How do we improve that pathway to make sure that they can take those quals and that they get the opportunities then at the top level?
Look, the opportunity, I think, the right word that you've used. I think, those clubs and certainly those national teams, even female coaches, the opportunity gone on to show and see how successful they can be. And, one of the aspects of the league is that, every single club has to have a female coach embedded into their technical department. So, not just talking about female staff in terms of physios, etc., but there has to be a female coach in the technical department, and that's something that was, before the APL over the league, and they've continued that on. So I think that every single club has got a female coach, either as the head coach. We've got 3 obviously head coaches, and there's a number of former coaches, also assistant coaches contributing to their teams as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We've spoken in the past, Ray, about the Generation 2032 scholarship program. You're a mentor, a master coach in that program. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works and also about that importance of the time to invest in your coaching, to have that space outside of another full-time job to reflect, to learn, to engage with other sports and to really grow as a coach yourself?
Yeah, the Gen 30 program is an amazing concept. It's a full-time scholarship program for 2 years for coaches. So we have Kelly Crew, who's the coach there at Brisbane Roar. She's in the pilot program at the AIS launched. We've also got Kat Smith and also Leah Blaney, who are taking part in the AIS, the National Gen 32 project as well. So as you said, give you the opportunity to devote yourself fully to your craft, to your practice of coaching, and you don't have to balance, as majority of the players do, some sort of work on the side to pay the bills, and your passion can become your career. Your passion becomes an opportunity to really invest your resources, time, the ability to have from outside of your sport is really crucial in terms of developing your own leadership awareness, your leadership skills, and I think just having a really open mind, that growth mindset to understand that this is an evolving journey. The game's forever changing. The generation of players that you're coaching is forever changing. And it'd be fairly to sort of say that never look to try to improve and to be better.
Ray, I wanted to ask you about the team that you're in charge of, the Junior Matildas as well. Obviously, the age group that you're working with are all a bit too young to break into the A-League Women's at the moment. But the league's expanding and more opportunities are opening up for players. Do you think it's going to get to the point where the league is big enough that your age group of teams has a lot of players that are in the A-League Women's week in, week out? Or is it kind of too soon yet? You want to see them playing for their NPL teams, you want to see them through the winter, maybe their train-ons with the A-League Women's. What's actually the right balance for your age group players now born in, I think, 2007 and 2008, so pretty young, before we actually see them in the A-League Women's?
Yeah, well, the rules there for a reason in terms of being 15 to be able to play in senior women's football. I think that's a pretty good guide. There are a couple of the players in the current the new cohort of, as you said, 07 and 08 who are actually on the fringes at the moment in and around some teams. You've got Indiana DeSantos there who's with her big sister Janae. So you do have a couple of them on the. But I'm so excited because I have this real privilege of seeing, these kids coming through, and I have no doubt the level and the depth of play and the ability and the excitement of these young players coming through is, in the years to come as the league expands with more players being required, there's a turnover of older players. I'm really excited that these kids will get the opportunity to make their mark, and I think that it's also important to not judge players, as a cohort, as a full group. I mean, every single player has their own journey. Every player is developing at their own rate, and I think it's important to let players experiment and be curious and develop at their own rate. And when they're ready, they can step in, and I'm sure that, as we've already seen, the previous group that have gone on and are doing some wonderful things in the A-League, Liberty A-League season. I think there's some really exciting time for the league and for the development of women's football in this country.
And just on the coaching pathways, obviously you were a premiership winning coach and a top coach at Canberra. Leah Blaney is one of our top female coaches, but she is with the under-20s. Mel Andretta's an assistant in the senior national team. Belinda Wilson's gone on to take on technical roles within the AFC. And there are so many competing jobs for these top A-League women's coaches. Is it as much about what the clubs are doing to retain the coaches as it is about the jobs existing to begin with? Because I think, in all fairness, it's pretty hard to prize, for instance, yourself or Leah away from your jobs to get them to come back to a club.
Yeah, well, there's is the support that you put in place with the women's league. So the clubs, that they put in place with the team. So, it's got to be more than just giving a female coach an opportunity then to step into a head coach role. It's got to be making sure that there's, support services and the resourcing from other staff in and around, to support with that. The first league, or up to about the first 12 years of the league, the ledger was pretty split in terms of the women coaches who had won trophy and men's trophies. As the league has expanded and more clubs have come in, the challenge really is for clubs to look outside what's in front of them and actually look outside. There's a number of coaches who are qualified already at this level to be able to step in, but again, it's about support and giving them the resources, just as they would in the men's side of the club, to be successful. And I think that's a really big step that over the coming years, the league and certainly as it falls down to the NPL competitions around the country and having that second tier level, that's bridge that gap.
Ray, we're getting some love for your ABBA t-shirt on Twitter. I just wanted you to know that. People are noticing. So there are some ABBA fans and some Liberty A-League fans, which is always good to see. But just to wrap it up, how excited are you for this Women's World Cup? Not only the fact that it's in Australia, but I think we've come off the back of a very successful Australian football campaign in Qatar as well. And it's just a great time to get around football. How do you feel about it? And what are you hoping that the women's game achieves out of all of this?
Well, I'm sure that a lot of other people, yourselves included, as a young, girl, playing in suburban football and making through football, I never thought that this would ever, in my lifetime, that we would be able to host, a Women's World Cup. And if you look and you see, the impact that it's had, in the last, few editions of where it's, been in 2019, obviously in France, 2015 in Canada, the impact that it had there around participation, etc., is that the Legacy 23 program that Football Australia is running, I think is a great opportunity. Not only wonderful from the 20th of July to the 24th, but we want in 20 years' time to have the legacy be that this makes not only on football in this country, certainly women's football, but the whole of football in the country, but just on communities and, on elevating the status of women, elevating the status of community and how sport can be a real vehicle for social change. And, there's so many things that we're all excited about, and but it's going to be here before we know. So there's a lot of work to do. But yeah, this is really the opportunity of our lifetimes to have our sport, the sport that we all know and love, to really make an impact.
It's going to be such a huge year. Ray, before we let you go, Teo is constantly accosting us with XG and taking on Teresa in terms of the XG stats. So what I want to know from someone who has the ability to not sit on the fence and tell us how this really stands, where do you stand on the numbers and the stats telling a story, but also trusting your gut and not losing the human at the centre of these things?
Yeah, look, this is the constant debate of the art of coaching. The science certainly plays a point, but at some stage, you have to trust that, you trust your gut, as you said. It's always very important to trust that gut instinct, and it's always blending art and the science and using the wonderful staff that you have around you to bounce that off. But look, the jury is definitely out, because at the end of the day, it's not a piece of paper with a couple of numbers that put the ball in the back of the net. It is people, it is humans. And so I think if we continue to look at it as art and science coming together to help polish the beautiful game, then that's a great win for everyone. It's a win-win.
Ray, you've answered that beautifully. Thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone this Savo. It's awesome to see you.
The winner takes it all, guys.
Ray Dower joining us on Dub Zone. Look, halfway through that answer, I thought you were 100% coming out of this the winner, Teresa, but she was. She was diplomatic in the end.
No, look, it was a great answer, and it is, both things can come into account, but in moderation. But I love the answer from Ray there.
In moderation? You don't believe in XG in moderation, Teo?
It had me in the first half, I'm not going to lie. But the numbers, look, of course there are times where the numbers lie to us, but we can discard them on a needs basis. I can tell you that Newcastle, even though they're 3-1 down, their XG is still higher than Sydney FC. But it's about reading a season-long trend as well. And the unfortunate trend for Newcastle is they consistently concede more goals than the number of XG that their opposition create, which means basically their defence, concedes goals from low percentage shots on goal. Often that is a question of goalkeeping, and as we see here, Claire Coelho out of the equation, but the defence comes through to save the day and prevent it being 4-1. Newcastle have steadied. That's Courtney Vine, who was nearly in. Newcastle is one of her former teams, of course, in the A-League Women's. It's probably the team where she had her breakout season after moving down from Brisbane, but Yeah, they were agonisingly close there to another goal. And as we have a look here, this was a great chance and a good save from Katie Offer to keep Newcastle from pegging the score back to 3-2. And that was Tara Andrews over the free kick.
Yeah, she loves a free kick. And that was from distance. That one, fantastic strike and equally great save from Katie Offer.
Well, and here's the chance that Mackenzie Hawkesby had as well. That could have been 4-1-2, and she knows that it was a good opportunity on that non-preferred left foot, but still able to draw a save out of Claire Coelho. So this game remains end-to-end. It just hasn't had the manic sort of 4 goals in 15 minutes that we got in the first 15 minutes of the game.
And just on the XG, Teo, like Ray said, it's people that score goals.
That was a great save by Katie Offer, as Teo just said. I know, Teo, you're a fan of Talia Franco as well. How much do saves like that build the confidence of a keeper when they're in a side like this, ultimately fighting for that starting spot?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, it's similar to a striker scoring goals and keeping their spot. You know, for a keeper, it's all about saving goals and keeping your team in the game. So, yeah, that would have been huge for Katie Offer, and she's done a couple positive things in this game, and she looks comfortable.
Yeah, it's important because, I mean, had her first start against the Brisbane Roar last week. Wasn't great on the goal they conceded. Of course, it was already 4-0 at the time, but I didn't think Katie Offer had a great NPL season with the Northwest Sydney Spirit. They finished, I think, second last on the table in New South Wales NPL, and this was a team that had her, Nat Tobin, Sophie Harding, so it had a number of A-League women's players playing for them every week, but you know, you would regularly see errors leading to goals, so this could be the making of her if she's able to start and play well, not least because Talia Franco, very good young goalkeeper from the Football New South Wales Institute, and again, Sydney FC, sport for choice. You know, Jada Wyman's out, and yet they have, you know, some really good options that they can turn to.
Yeah, 2 great backup goalkeepers, and this could potentially be the catalyst for Katie Offer finding her true form again. But yeah, she did have an average NPL season, but I just think she gets the green light just purely on the experience she does have in the A-Leagues.
You need to have a certain personality to be a backup goalkeeper, don't you? I mean, Offer is...
I think just to be a goalkeeper, full stop.
that is true, but you have to have the personality to be a goalkeeper, to go through all the training and all the risk and, you know, putting your body on the line the way a goalkeeper does, but then to not get the glory of playing. I mean, it's only her 3rd appearance. She's 23 years old. You know, I mean, what were your experiences like with the backup goalkeeper? Is it almost as important to be a good team person and someone that, you know, can make peace with being a backup? Because I guess we've seen it with Matty Ryan and his club situation in Copenhagen, where he's fighting with Camille Grabara, who's
just
going to the press and
messy, didn't it?
trash talking Matt Ryan. And, you know, there can be such a hostile environment where you have 2 people fighting tooth and nail for the one position. So is it also about the coach making sure that they pick the right personality as their number 2 goalkeeper?
Definitely. I mean, Katie Offer's a fantastic person, and you know, she knows her role within the team, and even though she's not playing, you know, she works just as hard as anyone else, and she's so professional about it. And when she's given the opportunity, she's, you know, happy for all that and giving it her best. So, you know, I've been in teams with fantastic, you know, names on paper, but, you know, if it's not harmonious, you know, off the field, then things don't work. But yeah, look, Ante wouldn't pick Katie if she didn't have, you know, the good intentions like she does. So very, very important.
That balance of the goalkeeping squad is such an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've seen from a Matilda's perspective, Jada Wyman break in very recently to the equation in terms of going away on camps and being a part of that squad, because how those 3, sometimes 4, work together off the field, outside of game time, how they keep the pressure on but also build each other up, seems to be such a crucial thing that coaches keep in consideration when they're selecting their backup goalkeepers.
Yeah, and I think there's been such a groundswell behind Casey Dumont in recent times because she's in front of us playing. Lydia Williams is stuck as the number 2 at PSG. Tegan Mike is playing every week, but, I mean, if you actually watch the game, it's not playing particularly well. Her team, Rosengard, they're winning in Sweden, but in the Champions League, they've been on the end of some pretty heavy beatings, and she hasn't been fantastic in terms of, you know, sometimes a goalkeeper can produce a 1 in 1,000 performance to save the day, and that hasn't appeared in the Champions League against the best players in the world. And then Mackenzie Arnold's been injured and not really in the mix at West Ham. So, you know, you think about it during the week, and I'm sitting here thinking, Liz is, for me, still our number 1. But are we going to roll into a World Cup where she hasn't played at all because she's number 2 at PSG? Are we just going to take people's word for it that the training environment is better than what we get to see and decide upon for ourselves? And that's why there's such a groundswell behind Casey Dumont as we see Shay Holman produce a save here out of Claire Coelho.
Yeah, look, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, Teo, but I know from, having played with Casey and Jada and Lydia, that they're all fantastic people, and, a lot of goalkeepers become best friends off the field, and they do drive each other and in training as well. So, the upcoming windows, I think, a perfect opportunity to give, I would have said Jada and Casey. Obviously, Jada's now out, but perfect time to give those goalkeepers a chance.
What frustrates me is, I wouldn't have Jada in my top three. Casey clearly ahead for me.
Okay.
But what frustrates me is with the Philippines friendly. Oh no, was it Thailand friendly?
Yeah.
Just get her on the field and give her that first cap.
Totally agree.
Like, how many times are we going to tease her by calling her into the squad?
Yeah.
I mean, it starts to become, almost like if you're defaulting to Jada Wyman as our third goalkeeper with no intention of ever playing her, then are you actually sincere with that selection? And so, I mean, I would have loved to see her at least be able to put her name on the list. I've played for the Matildas. You can't take that away from me. And now she's out for 6 weeks with this injury. Your next injury is always around the corner. It means she's going to miss the February window. It is really costly.
It was strange that Jada didn't get a run in that game. Really strange. But look, honestly, I can't separate Jada and Casey. I can't. I think they're both incredible goalkeepers.
I can. I think the last two grand finals do it for you. You got to look at the highest.
Did you see Jada in the first grand final?
Yeah, but she's still the reason they lost. I mean, I think Kyra's very lucky that was even given as her goal, the Olympico. I thought would have said it was a Wyman own goal.
I would have said it was a goal kick, but
they
gave it a corner.
Right.
Anyway.
The Sydney FC kit's right there on the hanger.
I love it when you two disagree.
It's right there on the hanger behind
How
you.
has Jada not proven herself to you? Having had both of them behind me on the field, they're just so good, both of them. But anyway, that you're entitled to your opinion, Teo. But I'm taking.
They
both bring different things to the party. They do. They have their own strengths and weaknesses. But having either one out there is, to me, same.
Again, I have defaulted back to the Euros final.
And they're good mates, and they drive each other too.
I've defaulted back to the Euros final a couple of times with just the pace, the power, the physicality, the height. If Australia is playing Germany in a quarterfinal, and for whatever reason, Lids, Micah, Arnold aren't available, you think of the worst case scenario. I don't want Jada defending corners against Alexandra Pop. I don't. And so that's where I'd take Casey Dumont.
That corner that you're referring to, Jada had just defended and kept onslaught after onslaught. It was if there were 10, it was the one she did miss, which is going to happen. If anything, you blame the rest of the team in front of her, not Jada. She wasn't well protected on that corner.
Football's a cruel game.
It is a cruel game, but I think that's pretty harsh on Jada. And if I had Casey or her available, flip a coin.
I do want to call out Joe NFC Chummer on Twitter wrote that goalkeepers are one of his weaknesses because they're basically the hidden soldier of the team and rarely get the recognition that they deserve. And I think at the end of the day, for all that we can go back and forth on Jada versus Casey Dumont, I think we can both agree that they are this incredible defence mechanism, and without goalkeepers, the game would be completely different.
I totally agree, Kat, but that grand final Teo is referring to is purely, and I was on the field, and I blame the rest of us because that was weak from the rest of us.
I want to say we've been encouraging a Teo v Teresa battle for weeks here on the Dub Zone, and we're seeing
But totally respect
in the
his
Twitter
opinion, but
as well.
just another take, that's all.
It's all right, T. People are here for it. People are here for Teresa v Teo.
Yeah, and let us know, are you team Casey Dumont? Are you team...
Oh, can we phrase it as Team
Jada?
Teo, Team Teresa?
Oh, here we go.
Hey.
Team Teo, Team Teresa.
Oh, why do you want to read this tweet out in
with
particular?
Teresa.
Well, hang on, Laser Boy's just blaming the referee.
Not even the goal kick. Okay, take that away. It was a goal kick, by the way, because I had the head of leagues and our CEO tell me after the game. But apart from that, it's on the rest of the Sydney team. It was weak, just toothless from the rest of us because Jada was the hero of that game.
It is this level of passion.
Sorry. It's true, though, because
Don't
Jada had a phenomenal
apologise.
game and, like, the rest of us sort of switched off. It was a grand final. Melbourne victory deserved that win in that grand final. The year after, though, Sydney, I think, deserved on the whole. But, yeah, Jada was the hero of that final.
I think
Her
it
and
should be
Casey
you.
are the best goalkeepers at the moment.
No, it's a fantastic point, T, and people are really backing you here just for the fact that, you understood that team to a very deep extent. You've played with them.
Well, I haven't
you know
watched
what they're
back
about.
that whole incident. I haven't been able
and
to.
But it is that reality, though,
Yeah.
right? That it's the last line of defence is the goalkeeper, and there's a lot of pressure on them in those moments to deliver.
sure.
But there's a reason the ball even ended up there in the first place, and a goalkeeper's got to work with what they've got.
That's right, Kat. And Jada put in her shift that day. Like,
Yeah.
she did more than what was, demanded of her. And it was the rest of the team that I think we all get the blame. Yeah.
Sydney certainly have a lot to offer today, according to this tweet.
We've
which
had
we
a few
like
offer
very much.
puns on Twitter today.
Between that and Sarah Hunter, we've got plenty to work with this afternoon.
And Courtney Vine, because it's Hunter Valley.
Oh,
Yes,
hey.
yeah. I'm not claiming that.
Oh, that's funny.
I've read it a couple of times now on Twitter. Keep the puns coming. I love them.
That's the kind of tweet I can get around. Absolutely. As we check back in with the scores, Teo, and no change in Newcastle at number 2 Sports Ground.
No, it's still 3-1. Sydney FC have had 11 total shots, 8 on target. So Claire Quayler has actually been put through a power of work now in this first half. Most of that, Sydney FC scored with their first 3 shots on target. So Newcastle have since been able to provide some resistance. The other game, Western United might be starting to get a little bit worried here. 5 shots, 2 on target. Wellington, Phoenix, 3 shots, haven't put 1 on target just yet. Entries into the final third, 26-24. It's more or less dead level in terms of territory and where the game is taking place. So, Teresa, credit to Wellington.
Yeah,
they're not
100%.
letting Western United build consistent pressure because they're not pinned in their defensive half. And this has been one of the main problems that they've had in games over their existence since coming into the A-League Women, that just too much of the game takes place right on the edge of their penalty area. That's not been the case today.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, they're showing really good fight today, and they look very organised, and they're pressing when at particular times as well. So they've gone back and done their homework, and it's showing in today's game against potentially the what could be the leaders.
How much of a boost do you reckon they got from getting their first point of the season last week? Yeah, it was a draw. Perhaps they could have got the win at home. But for a team that up until that point in the season had been tasting loss after loss, how much of a boost does that give a squad?
Yeah, huge boost. And probably during the week they might have looked back on the game as well, and it's always good to look back on a good performance and see what you've done well and take that motivation into the next game. And like I said, it looks like they've done their homework, and they're showing really good structure today and will to win the ball.
Kate Doak loving this battle, the duel between Teo and Teresa. Keep those tweets coming in as we approach halftime in both games, Teo, both in Victoria and in the Hunter Valley.
This tweet here from Sam Cat. Do you want to read that one for us?
If Madison Haley continues in this form, will she be the best foreigner since Bledsoe at the club?
So Aubrey Bledsoe was a goalkeeper for a couple of years for Sydney FC. Teresa, you're probably best qualified to answer this in terms of teammates that you played alongside. I mean, Sydney FC have kind of prided themselves on using foreigners as very complementary pieces. Most other teams have to, have a core of Australians and that are elevated by a group of foreigners. It's often a very different story at Sydney.
Yeah, normally we just sort of fill a couple holes with a couple foreigners, and I think it was 2019, the home win, that we actually used our whole quota of foreigners with Quetta, Colaprico, McCaskill and Bledsoe.
Yeah.
So, look, I couldn't pick best one. They've all brought something really special, to the team. And Madison Haley's been fantastic. But yeah, I couldn't pick it.
I mean, in terms of like a single season foreign player to come and play in this league, the season Huerta was at Adelaide before she went to
awesome.
Sydney.
Yeah.
That's up there. Jess Fishlock. Pick any season, really.
Just consistently
I don't
good,
think Jess Fishlock's probably the best player in the league ever, not just the best foreign.
Arguably, yeah. Arguably.
And then this is an obscure one, but do you remember the 2010 season when Canberra went unbeaten? Taryn Hemmings, the right wing back who scored 4 goals from right wing back.
Yes, I remember the name.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put a face to the name.
So we've had some incredible single season foreign players, but Madison Haley's up to 5 goals in 5, and this is starting to look like one of those. That's getting into Fishlock sort of territory in terms of influence on the team.
Influence on the team, but you've got to look at what the league was like then to now. I think it had a few more sort of seasoned professionals.
A lot more of the
in
senior
the peak
Matildas
of their
were still
careers,
here.
and all, more of the senior Matildas. So I wouldn't put Madison Haley in that category yet. She could get there, as the season goes on. But I just think the league had a few more sort of big names around then, and it's sort of building to that now.
Approaching half-time between Western United and Wellington, where it remains at 0-0. But in Newcastle, Teo, it is half-time. Sydney FC go into the break 3-1 up. And would you believe we got all 4 goals in the first 8 minutes of play at number 2 Sports
An
Ground?
incredible start to the game, but Newcastle stemmed the bleeding, pegged a goal back, and then started to create chances of their own. So the goals came in the first, 4th and 7th minutes for Sydney, and then in the 10th minute for Newcastle. So if anything, the game has continued to be quite open and have a lot of shots on goal, but it's almost been dormant by comparison. I guess, what is Ash Wilson's halftime team talk? I mean, surely you go in and you say, first 10 minutes couldn't have gone much worse for us, but we're in this game. It's halftime at City Vista. Tell you what, I wonder if Western United regret not having Chloe Legerz on the bench today, but we'll come back to that in a sec. First, Ash Wilson, what do you think the team talk is there?
I think a huge problem Newcastle have is conceding early at times, where they just, it happened today, and now they've put themselves behind the 8 ball a bit. Look, they'll go in. They managed to calm down and get back into the game to an extent. I still think Sydney's sort of running all over them. Quayla looks a bit more comfortable now, and she's doing a better job at, maintaining a bit of calmness. But yeah, look, they'll go in, and Ash Wilson will have her notes on what needs to change, and I guess go out, reset, go out as if it's 0-0 again, and really take it to Sydney.
We might get to that Legerz question in the second half, I reckon. The longer this stays 0-0, the more burning it's going to be.
Definitely. Look, not just knowing Chloe, she would want him to be out there regardless. So it'll be interesting to see why she's not there.
We'll have a look back at all 4 goals in just a moment's time in the halftime break here on Dub Zone. As we head to the break, make sure you've downloaded the Keep Up app. We're going to have a bit of a yarn in the second half about a few articles that caught our eye this week, but there's a whole heap happening both at home and abroad in the football world on Keep Up. So download the app, visit the website, make sure you're staying up to date. And to give you a little taste of what you can enjoy there on the website, let's check out now the auditions, the nominees for the Liberty A-League Goal of the Week.
Opportunity to take one-on-one, and good strike there from Princess Abini. 1-0 Sydney FC, courtesy of a brilliant goal there by Princess Abini.
Oh, this is a great bit of individual effort here from Princess Abini. She's just driven really nicely past the defender 11. In terms of how close she's doing that, I think at the moment Casey's doing everything she needs to be doing to get noticed and to raise the eyebrows of any national team coach to say, wow, well, this is a keeper who is performing week in, week out, making saves when important, organising well, managing her defensive line, distribution, all the rest. And Casey certainly should be in that conversation. I think Tony Gustafsson would have eyes on a lot of these keepers across the Liberty A-League, and Casey certainly would be top of the pick in that.
They have done it! Oh my word! Showing all of her class.
And she will accept the invitation to shoot, and Katrina Gorry scores. To the far post it goes. It is cleared by Dorber. Here's the follow-up from Romers. They have done it!
This is lovely from Sydney. Hunter through for Haley. Haley, that is brilliant. Madison Haley still going. Madison Haley! Oh my word! And Emma Rovers delivering a thunderous strike from Rangers. Legerz doing the same here. Oh my word!
Sian Fryer is still looming for the Raw. Spins and feeds it to Gorry. This is again shooting range for Gorry. And she will accept the invitation to shoot. And Katrina Gorry scores.
Our goal of the month nominees there, and you can vote at keepup.com.au. We've mentioned Chloe Legerz a few times today. She features there as well. Teo, for the goal itself, but also the timing. Hasn't she popped up and scored some crucial goals late for Western?
Yeah, she has. However, I think my choice for goal of the month there would have to be Madison Haley. Just the technical ability on the run to produce that finish. You don't see that very often. I think the uniqueness more than anything is what would make me choose that. But in context of the game, Legerz was the reason that Western beat Melbourne City. So it's a compelling case, and I guess that's why we put it to a public vote.
We do. You can vote. I want to hear your vote as well. I'm hoping you disagree with Teo again. It's been a highlight of the show thus far.
I do, but yeah, I like the Chloe Legerz goal, and the fact that she does it over and over again as well. That to me was quality.
Absolutely. I think for me, it's two things. It's the meaning of the goal and what that did for the game and how it changed a game, and then the goal itself. And for me, I can't speak highly enough of Madison Haley and the way that she's just, I would aspire to play like that, just to be so calm on the ball and the way she just slots it in so effortlessly. I think she's got a few of those that are just beautiful so far this season.
Beattie Goad has been good enough to join us now from Melbourne Victory. Obviously, they played out a 1-1 draw with Perth Glory last night. Beattie, thank you so much for coming on the show and having a yarn with us. Your side created so many opportunities there at Amy Park. What was the vibe like in the sheds after that draw?
Honestly, a bit of mixed feelings. We've had a lot of injuries, so we had to really dig deep and ask a lot of from the young girls. We're also pretty sad about one of the players on Perth who may have torn her ACL. So, and obviously we wanted to come away with 3 points. So it was very mixed feelings. More so on the sad side, to be honest. Yeah.
Hey Beattie, it's Teresa here. You just mentioned, you've had a few injuries. Given that, is the team satisfied with how it's going at the moment?
Sorry, the video is not that strong. You mentioned something about injuries?
Yeah, just you mentioned that the squad's had a lot of injuries and people have to step in. Given that, is the team happy with how it's going at the moment?
I don't think we're happy. Obviously we wanted 3 points. You can never really be happy with a draw. So yeah, I wouldn't say we're happy, to be honest. We're still wanting to be better. And it's really hard when each week you have some girls in, some girls out, and you have to play a whole new with a whole new squad, and people are in new positions. I'm not naturally a defender, so for me, I was playing a different position. Paige, who even scored, she's not a winger, so a lot of us are playing out of position, which makes it difficult. But I think 4 points from 2 games with like 6 starting players out is okay, but we're always wanting more. Yeah.
Beattie, you've segued perfectly into my question, which is how you're being deployed at the moment. Are you actually a victim of your own versatility? I mean, does Jeff Hopkins rely on you to play positions because you can? And are you in a position to push back and say, hey, I want to play midfield? That's actually my preferred position?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm a victim of my own versatility, but I think that's a strength. And I think I'll do whatever's best for the team. So I've played a season in left back in Germany, so it's not completely new to me. Obviously not my preferred position, but I think for the past 2 games it has been what the team's needed, and team comes first. So yeah, I think right now I would love to be in midfield or wing, but I wouldn't ask for that because I know that left back is where the team needs me. So, yeah.
And with that said, have you actually discussed with Jeff a roadmap for how you get back on the Matildas' radar? I mean, you got 3 caps, you were called up and played for the national team and impressed when you were there, or is it purely about winning the title for Melbourne Victory and anything else can happen if it happens?
Sorry, you'll have to repeat that question. The video cut out.
No. What I was asking was, have you and Jeff discussed a roadmap back into the Matildas and how you can get there? Or is it really more about what you can do for Victory and that hasn't entered your thinking about how you're deployed in the A-League Women's at the moment?
Yeah, so I only heard the part about is Jeff creating a roadmap for you back to Matildas? And we've spoken about that, but I think it's more about improving game to game and helping Victory as much as I can. and Matilda's is sort of the cherry on the top of the cake. I kind of like to not get too ahead of myself, and I kind of get overwhelmed when anyone really mentions, oh, Matilda's. I just like to stay grounded and improve internally and with the circle close around me. So it's been spoken, but it's not something that's headlining our conversations. Yeah.
Beatty, you talk of feeling somewhat dissatisfied by the current performance of the team. Is that because of how well you guys did last season? And is there that pressure within the team to perform at that exact same level and to, if anything, get those same results as you did last season? Does that really sit on your shoulders week in, week out?
So the video is a bit cracky, but I think you mentioned that there's like a pressure from last season. And I think in ways, yeah, Jeff does mention the back-to-back and that we always have a target on our back. But personally, I was not part of the past 2 seasons, so I personally don't feel that pressure. And I know that the team is quite different from last year. So I actually would say that the pressure is not the pressure from going back to back is not really something that's affecting us. I think it's more that there's been a lot of injuries. There's new squads every week, and people are playing out of position and things like that. But they're all just excuses. And I think we're doing well. We've gotten points under our belt, but we're a team that always wants more, and we're not at the top of the table, which is what you want to be at. But yeah, I'd say that the pressure from last year, personally, I don't feel it, and I don't think it's getting under the team's skin just because we're quite a new group of girls. Yeah.
Beatty, just one more from me. You're 25 now, but you broke in as a high school student, and now you are in a role where you can look at Ava Breedis or Paige Zoyce, and you can mentor them. Are you enjoying that opportunity to actually guide them through their own journey, having been there and lived it yourself as a prodigious teenager that was playing senior W League when you were still in high school?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because last season in Spain, the mean age was 28 years old on my team. And so being 25, I was sort of not the young one, obviously, but not the oldest. And then coming to Victory, we have a lot of girls under 20. So it was like a huge switch. And yeah, I had to say, oh, wow, okay, I'm really a mentor here. And I'm enjoying it. I think I'm learning how to be a mentor because I had like a year of being a mentor in college as a senior when we won the national championship. But for the most part, most of my career, I have been, the learner and the young one. So it has been new ground for me, and I'm really enjoying it. It takes a lot of patience, and also you have to sort of step back and go, okay, I know I've learnt that, and that's second nature to me, but maybe not to them. And mainly just being the mentor that in some ways and in some parts of my career I might not have had, just more encouragement, more positive talk, but also knowing when criticism needs to be said. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It is a tough role for sure.
Well, I can tell you, they are in incredibly good hands with you, even if you think mentoring is new to you. So congratulations and well done.
Beatty, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your insights with us today. Thanks for joining us on Dub Zone.
No worries. Thanks for having me, and sorry about the video quality. I hope my answers came through okay. And keep doing what you're doing. The publicity for the women's game is great, so thank you.
Thanks so much, Beatty. Beatty Goad from Melbourne Victory joining us. 25, Teo, and what mature, well thought out answers she was able to give us. We'll talk more about Beatty in the second half. Quickly before action kicks off in Newcastle again, Newcastle up against Sydney. Let's have a quick look at the highlights from the first half. 4 goals inside 10 minutes.
Yeah, this was a wild game, and Sydney FC scored after 19 seconds. That's the official number on the goal. Madison Haley capitalising on a bit of errant defending here, rounding the goalkeeper Claire Coelho, who was under an injury cloud after getting hurt in the warm-up. And at this point, it was red alert for Newcastle because Mackenzie Hawkesby slides in Sarah Hunter. That's goals in consecutive games for her, 3 for the season, playing out of midfield. She's having a super season. And then the fast break from Courtney Vine set up Mackenzie Hawkesby with a really neat finish, it must be said. And at this point, Teresa Polias, we were literally quoting the record books. Newcastle, to their credit, were able to steady, and they got a goal back through Adriana Konyaski.
Yeah, look, credit to Newcastle for calming down and getting back into the game and what could have been really disastrous. But that 19 seconds, is that the quickest goal? I'm not sure what the quickest goal is. We'll have to find out on that one. But, yeah, interesting. The second half will be very interesting.
The second half is just about to get underway at number 2 Sports Ground, in fact. So it is 3-1 Sydney over Newcastle at number 2. The second half at Western United Wellington, they go into that 0-0. It is 0-0 as they head into the second half at City Vista Recreation Park. And right here on Dub Zone, we'll keep you across both simultaneous games throughout the Arvo, with Teo bringing you all of the highlights. We've got Adelaide-Canberra coming up a little bit later tonight because of the heat there in South Australia. But Teo, there's been plenty of action, certainly plenty of action early at number 2.
Yeah, goal mouth scramble here, and have Newcastle been given the goal? The wind has certainly been a factor in that, and Katie Offer, the Jets are back. It's 3-2. Wow. I have a friend at the ground, and sorry to break the no sharing rule, but he described it as a 5-goal breeze. So this certainly, you saw the corner flag going crazy there. Good luck working out whose goal that is. I think they're on the goal line. That might be Taryn King's first A-League women's goal if she's got the last touch here. Maybe Tara Andrews. That's going to take a bit of forensics there on the goal line. But Teresa, the bottom line is it's been paid.
Yeah, the box office Jets producing the goods again.
Here we go.
But my statement here is, there were Sydney players around and there was no protection for Katie Offer there. So that's a talking point in itself. But, Jets getting themselves back into the game.
This would be, if they can come back and get anything out of this game, I tell you what, it would be one of the most extraordinary results we've seen in the league's history.
Absolutely. And there is comment here from Joe saying, is this a possible comeback for Newcastle? We said this very early on in the first half of this game that anything could happen. And look at the scoreline now. But I think it does open up, again, that debate around goalkeepers and how important that role is. But the fact that by the time the ball is in that space, there's a lot to be said about where it's gone wrong by other players. And it's obviously left to the goalkeeper to figure out what to do with it in those spaces. And that's why you obviously are team Jada, because you've seen that with your own eyes.
Yeah, just look, in that instance, you got to look at, it's easy to blame the goalkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think Katie Offer was given any protection there. But it was a good delivery as well.
Yes.
It suited the conditions for Newcastle there. Very dangerous.
I love the tweets coming in as well, Kat. Plenty of people, I don't know, watching from at the ground or at home because conditions look terrible at the ground.
Yeah, I imagine that's what it's like outside right now. A bit rainy and
blowing a gale by the looks.
Yeah, not particularly enjoyable, but the comeback is on, baby, according to Daniel. So let's see what happens. But there are clearly a few Newcastle fans at the game and interacting with Dub Zone right now, which is awesome to see. And they're very excited about this scoreline.
Yeah,
taking quite a change.
They're without their hype woman, Brianna Goodchild, this week as well. I mean, imagine the box office Jets getting up if she was there to work the crowd. But we have Sydney FC trying to reassert themselves back on the game here, and it's been headed away. I am going to try and do some forensics on this goal and work out who might have got the last touch here and it's always tough. There's no VAR in the A-League Women's, as you know, and these goal line decisions for the assistant referees, they have some of the hardest jobs, don't they? Especially in a pack of players like that.
A crowded box, it's always difficult. And, there's a lot of talk about a Newcastle comeback, and if they can bounce forward from this goal and hold out Sydney for a while, it's game on.
Absolutely. And there's a comment here as well from Joey Lynch saying that the next goal in this game is very crucial. And you can see that because a 4-2 or a 3-all are very, very different outcomes for this game and the direction that it's going to go.
Definitely. And it's getting pretty physical out there, I think.
It was 1-1 in the second half between Brisbane Roar and Sydney FC last week after Sydney went 3-0 up in that game. How crucial is finishing these games for Sydney? They still got the 3 points last week, but you can't get too comfortable.
No, you can't.
With those early goals and that
And
lead.
it's funny you say that, Neve. In seasons past, Sydney would start slow and finish strong, and it's sort of the opposite now. So this week's a perfect opportunity. I'm sure they've sort of spoken about this. They really need to close out games and produce the same level of performance in the second half.
Another Dub Zone tweet there, Kat, talking about just how crazy this game is in Newcastle.
Surely the craziest Dub Zone game yet. Do we think it is one of the craziest we've seen so far?
Well, have we had like a proper stoppage time or last minute winner yet? I don't think we have.
No.
We've had late goals, but we haven't had like last kick of the game or last play of the game sort of goals, have we?
No, I think this may be up there, at least for the fact that we saw a goal in 19 seconds. I think that in itself is
craziest start
pretty
for
crazy,
sure.
right?
Well, I can tell you, Andy Howe, the official statistician of both the A-Leagues and the Socceroos and Matildas, 4 goals in 10 minutes is by far the quickest 4 goals at the start of a game. The previous quickest was 19 minutes in 2009.
Wow.
So, and that was Sydney versus Perth. So I'm guessing you would have still been at Central Coast back then, though.
I think so.
Yes.
Don't trust my math.
We've already had one game that you don't remember
Come
playing
on,
in today,
Deo.
so I don't want to stitch you up again.
And Joe Chama writes too that a game is never over until the final whistle is blown, and I think that is
the
so
beauty,
incredibly
isn't it?
true,
Yeah.
isn't it? Ladies League also says the scoreline is equally as mind-blowing as the other games opening 45.
Yeah, because there's a lot of credit coming in for Wellington Phoenix and a lot of Phoenix
Absolutely.
fans watching Dub Zone from New Zealand now that are really enjoying the fact that their team is putting up such a fight. 0-0 through 50 minutes. There was one substitution at halftime for Western United, and it might have prompted a bit of a formational change as well because Carly Johnson came off for TJ Vlanich. So Johnson, who had been playing in the front three, off of Vlanich here taking this free kick, who's normally a left wing back or a left back. So as Western United go into the penalty area and Brianna Edwards dives on the ball, perhaps this will lead to Western trying to play a little bit wider. They'll push Amy Medwin, the number 5, up into the front 3 potentially. And they've had 8 total shots, 3 on target to Wellington, 3 shots, none on target. But in terms of possession, 60-40 in favour of Western United. And final third entries, Wellington Phoenix have had more. So 31-30. So territory-wise, the Phoenix are still keeping this game in a midfield battle rather than allowing Western United to dominate them.
Well, I mean, it's fantastic that when your team's not producing the results that you want them to, you want to at least see improvement week in, week out, and Wellington are showing that this week. So, I'm hoping them as the underdogs can come away with something today.
We're having that great chat with Betty Goad at half-time, Teo, so we didn't get a chance to have a look at the Western Wellington highlights from the first half. Let's have a quick look at those now. It was 0-0 at the break, but certainly not for want of opportunities created.
No, Stacey Papadopoulos with a cutback here, which is diffused at the near post. Hannah Keane challenging Brianna Edwards. Then we see this build-up through the left side for Western United, and Hannah Keane, it just hits the base of the post on its way out there. Emma Rovers playing a pass, Keane again, and this was Edwards saving once. Not the most powerful shot from Keane, but there was a second chance here, and then denied by Edwards once again. So really a fantastic double save, and Edwards, who is the backup to Lily Oldfeld, but those two, you speak about goalkeepers that are close friends. Oldfeld and Edwards are super tight as teammates, really, supportive of each other. And I guess when your deputy is in for 7 games in a row to start the season, you need someone who's going to be able to basically play like a number 1 for that period of time. Edwards today is playing like that, and that's what Wellington need.
And look, we're speaking a lot about the goalkeepers today, but you said that they're very close, her and Oldfield, and she's had to step in, and she looks so confident, and I think that's down to working closely with your counterpart. So really great signs for Wellington and Brie Edwards.
Now, I can tell you that the Newcastle second goal was given to Tara Andrews.
Okay.
So she gets the credit. I was thinking maybe even the original corner might have gone over the line to begin with, but no, out of the scramble, Tara Andrews gets the goal. So she continues to work her way up the all-time leading scorers table as a result. And it, I believe, is career goal, yet number 44 for her in 122 games.
Yeah, look, I just remember Tara Andrews. She's been around for so long, and so many times she punished us, in games. And although Newcastle may have been the underdogs, they sort of proved to be a bit of a bogey team in years past. So hopefully for Sydney today it's not the case. But, Newcastle is staying in the game.
Can tell you with goal number 44, she is now 1 behind Emily Gilnick in 5th all time. So really starting to work up the table. Yeah,
huge. It's really good good signs to see this from Wellington, isn't it? I remember we spoke early on in Dub Zone about Bree Edwards because I interviewed her trainer who, when they were based in Wollongong, she was spending time with G10 Academy, and I spoke with him about her, and he was really excited about her development and where she was heading as a goalkeeper. So personally, it's great to see her having such a good game, and I feel like the real trend in this episode is the goalkeepers.
It is.
We're seeing them play such crucial roles across each of these games, and it's also such a talking point. It really gets people talking. There's so much commentary on #DubZone about goalkeepers, about Jada, about Casey Dumont. If you're on your phone, if you're on your laptop, check it out, have a read. People are really excited by this topic, and they love the Teo Teresa debate that we need to continue. Absolutely.
Well, in the case of Bree Edwards, it builds experience for the Wellington team as a squad. So, the only way is up in that regard. And, you never know. She may even keep the spot when Lily Oldfield's healthy and fit again.
Well...
You never know, Teo, that's all I'm saying.
If she's in the form of her life...
I'm not fighting you.
If she's in,
you just don't know.
I just think Oldfield's the spiritual leader of that team. She's been captain as well.
She definitely is.
And I think it's a different voice too. I think one thing that you can speak to, Teresa, is how different is the change of voice in terms of how someone marshals the defence and leads the back line. It's not just goalkeeping ability, is it? It's really the organisation of that unit.
It is. It's so important. And, you tend to, as a midfielder, you get tired, you tend to switch off, but then, you hear that booming voice behind that, kicks you back into gear. It's super important. So that's a great point, Teo. I agree with you on that one.
There was also a comment that just came up as well, saying it's despite whose side you're on between Teresa and Teo, it's great to see healthy debate on the Australian football game, because at the end of the day, I don't think it is a right or wrong. It's not black and white.
It comes from a good place, Kat.
Exactly. It's
we
subjective.
love the game, and it's...
In saying that, Joe Chalmer says Casey Dumont.
Like I said, flip a coin.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've spoken about Wellington's goalkeeping, defending, Western United now. Jess McDonald, previously on this show, we had suggested she was on a 7-game guest stint, but it's actually 9 games a guest stint. With the extended season, you can now be a guest for longer. So they've got her for a couple more games. But this is perhaps where they're looking to their own leaders here, Teresa, to find a way back into the game. I mean, they're up to 10 total shots now, but we've seen, a couple of harmless ones here in this half. This is a header here from TJ Vlanich, not too close to the target. But really, what they need is a bit of class and a bit of cutting edge, and maybe that's where someone like McDonald can provide the finishing touch. To be fair, she's it's only Western's second home game of the season, and she scored the only goal at this venue when they played Melbourne Victory back in round 1.
Yeah, and she's taken the role of provider as well, I think, Jess McDonald. She's crucial to the team, but those Hannah Keane opportunities, they were golden chances in that first half. So they enjoy that ball in behind, just that nicely rolled ball in behind. So yeah, Western United, they'll be continuing to try and hit those players in behind and see if they can come away with the goal.
One thing that we probably have to address is, I mentioned Western United had 60% of possession. They are a bit like their men's team. They're a very comfortable team without the ball. They would prefer the opponent have it. They would rather hit on the counter. They would rather use their pace into open field and basically lure the opposition in and then hit them with P&P on the counter. So when the obligation is on them to be creative, to do something with the majority of possession, that's where you can come unstuck. If their midfield, the two Tarantos, Emma Robers, that's why they signed someone like a Jacqueline Savicki, who is still out managing her knee injury. She's training but not playing. It's probably where you need someone like a Chloe Legerz, and maybe that's why they'll regret not having her on the bench today.
Yeah, just that point of difference, that confidence. She's an amazing player, Chloe, but to play that style, that Western United play, they need to be very well coached, which they are, and super fit as well to manage so much time not on the ball. But yeah, today they've got a lot of the ball and they're sort of struggling a bit to score goals.
Absolutely. Do you think not having Chloe Legerz is why this scoreline is what it is today?
No, because she's been coming on off the bench anyway, so I wouldn't put it down to that at all. But if she was on the bench, perhaps
she'd be on by now.
Yeah. That's the only thing.
I think Western's built this team to hit the flanks, cross and say a prayer. And we're going to see a lot of this, a lot of diagonal balls trying to find a mistake. We're going to see a lot of crossing in, hoping for Keane and McDonald. We're going to see a team that wants set pieces and to create chaos.
Yeah.
We're not really expecting them to have, measured build-up passing through the centre of the pitch.
No, and most of their goals have come from, balls leaked out of the area and shots and not so much build-up. They don't walk it in, do they?
No, by no means. And we see a shot there from Adriana Taranto, which is deflected into the arms of the keeper. I mean, the one thing that could go in their favour as we hit the hour mark is if they can pin Wellington in their defensive half. I mean, the real credit to Wellington is that they have redressed the territory battle, which has been such an issue for them. And now Western, if they can create consistent pressure, mistakes will come, because that's been one of the reasons that Wellington are down winless at the bottom of the league.
You can see they're trying to do that at the moment. They're trying to trap Wellington in their back third, win it, and create something from that. So, we'll see how Wellington respond to that.
And from a Western United perspective, a lot of their wins have come late. So while they haven't scored an opener yet, those comeback goals, come from behind goals, or indeed those goals late in the game, have worked for them this season. I don't think they'll be feeling too worried just yet.
No, it's all familiar for them, and they probably enjoy that. It's built a lot of character for their team and unity for them. We saw that against Perth last week, where you thought they were down and out of that game, and then that second half... I just can see that team talk just saying, remain calm, we've been here, we know what we're about, just go and win the game. And that's what they did. So, it'll make for a great second half.
Yeah, and for all that we talk about Legerz not starting, there is definitely a combination or a culmination in her coming on late and Western United getting that winning goal or making that difference. And I do think it is a testament to Legerz's influence on that team, and that she doesn't need to play a full 90 to ensure that they win.
For sure. And that's why I'm thinking, were they a bit complacent going into this game against Wellington? I'm not saying they were, but, to leave Chloe out, because you want that option to put her on, whenever. But, it's an interesting one, that.
Let's head back to number 2 Sports Ground now, Teo, because we've had a penalty call.
Princess Abini against Tegan Allen. Ooh. Wow, that's... Maybe you need to watch what the feet are doing there, because the arms certainly weren't doing much. Princess Abini goes to ground. Tegan Allen, and former Sydney FC player, of course, and Abini is stepping up to take. So Princess Abini will play her 100th A-League women's game next start, whenever that is, or next appearance off the bench, but she's a starter these days, so you assume that it'll be a start. Today is game number 99, and this is shooting at goal number 20 here. We've talked about goalkeepers so much. Claire Coelho, can she go the right way here against Princess Abini? Scored last week against Brisbane. Coming off what looks like a one-step run-up here as well. Princess Abini knows she's going to step it out now. So this is for Sydney to restore a 2-goal buffer, and it's clinically put away by Princess Abini, and says, can you hear that? It's 4-2, and Princess Abini, it's going to be her week, because she's going to be, I think, the youngest player to reach 100 games in the A-League Women's at just 22 years of age, beating, funnily enough, Tegan Allen by 1 year.
Wow.
And puts away the penalty for 4-2. Second goal of the season. Or Princess Abini.
In consecutive games.
And in consecutive games.
And
so
I'm loving her confidence at the moment. She's really stepped up as a leader this season, in my view. And she's performing really, really well, just in time for her 100th. So huge achievement for Princess Abini.
And I mean, Sydney FC lead their number 2 Sports Ground 4-2 as we head back to City Vista with a very special guest joining us. It is Matilda, it is Western United marquee signing Chloe Legerz. Chloe, it is so good to see you. We were surprised not to see your name there on the team sheet today. What's the latest?
Nothing, though. We just got a couple of games coming up really quickly. So to be able to look after my body and, slowly easing me back into the season, we thought it was the best choice to be able to do this.
How are you feeling? It is 0-0 there, watching the side from the sidelines without able to go out and impact late, as we've seen you do so often this season off the bench. Where do you think this game is won?
Look, I think if we control the tempo, I think it's very transitional at the moment. If we get the ball on the ground, we speed up the play. We have our chances, we just need to take them.
Hey Chloe, it's T here. You guys,
T, how are you?
Good, how are you? Look, you guys have had a phenomenal start to the season. I'm sorry, because I wrote you guys off at the start as I wouldn't have put you in the top 4 at this point, so kudos to you guys. But there's something special about what you're producing down there. Like, you just seem so tight knit. Like, you know, off the field bonding. Like, is that what the secret is to the success at the moment?
Yeah, honestly, I think it really is. I think the one advantage that we have is the girls have played together for years before coming into the league, and it's helped tremendously. Everyone feels like a family. It's got that family vibe. This club lives and dies by that motto, and I truly believe that it's transitioning onto the field, and I think that's exactly why we've been able to dig deep and win games late in the game. Sorry.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a family, and I'm loving that you're scoring bombs again. Keep it up.
Thanks, T.
Chloe, you mentioned the busy run of fixtures. Sydney FC, I mean, you went to Newcastle, you played against Sydney FC, but it's always different for you. I mean, it's a club that you still love. How hard is it going to be to, you know, suit up, put your game face on and go head-to-head with them midweek?
Yeah, I think this is going to be, you know, the biggest game so far of the year. For me, it's going to be a game full of love and passion. I have so much respect for Sydney FC and all the players there and the coaches and the organisation. So I'm really looking forward to be able to play against them. It's something I haven't done in a really long time, and I don't get many opportunities to do it. So, look, I'm just going to take it, and I'm going to enjoy every single moment playing against the club that I love so much.
And did you have a word to any of the players at halftime, or do you leave the team talk to Mark Torcaso and Helen Winterburn, or did you get in and just get in the ear of any individuals and give them any pointers from the sideline as well?
No, I definitely have my 2 cents always to put in. T would know that, but no, I definitely said something at halftime. But the girls know exactly what they need to do. We just need to take our chances and stay calm. You know, we haven't played a game since the first round at home. So we're in front of our fans, and we said that we didn't want to lose any games at home, and we want to stand by that. So we just need to ride it out. Our team is so forward, letting it go all the way to the last minute. So, yeah, just keep watching, and hopefully the girls can do their job.
And on Wednesday, are you good for the full 90?
I have only played 45 minutes, so the reasonable thing to do would just progress after that 45 minutes. The one thing I will say about the club is they've been really good with easing me back in and not pushing me past my body's capabilities. So I'm really grateful for that, because they want to get me prepared for the World Cup. So no 90 minutes, but I will be there in spirit, just definitely not on the field. So.
Chloe, we can hear some stuff happening around you, which is hilarious. But obviously, Mark Torcaso is in the running for Coach of the Month for December. He's brought you guys, or the majority of your team, from Calder United into the Liberty A-Leagues, and you're obviously performing so well. I'm in green. I'm a low-key supporter of Western United so far this season. You guys have killed it. What is it about Torcaso that you think has allowed him to be able to do this with the squad, and if anything makes him kind of worthy of that Coach of the Month award?
Mark definitely takes on the role of being a player manager extremely well. He likes to check in on all the girls, calls them all the time to make sure that they're doing well and how their body's responding. And for me, that's like one thing I haven't ever had, where a coach has been so supportive of every single player. So he really gets everyone around and makes sure that everyone's in the right headspace leading into every single training session and every single game.
Chloe, you mentioned your 2 cents worth, and just a bit of an inside joke, but are you making sure the balls are pumped and everyone's got the right socks on?
See, you know the answer. Come on.
I love it. Keep it up.
Chloe Legerz, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back out to the ground there and watch the second half play out. Thanks for joining us on Dub Zone.
Appreciate it. Cheers, thank you.
Teresa, come on, you got to. What's the story behind this one?
Nothing huge. Just Chloe, you know, she's a leader, and you know, she brings really good standards to a team. And I just remember years back, you know, she demands a certain level of quality and professionalism from, especially the youngsters. But there were a few incidents where balls were flat, and you know, players turning up with the wrong socks on, and she's, you know, made it known that that's not acceptable. So
that's where she gave her 2 cents.
yeah, but you know, it's great. You need, like, every leader brings something different to the team, and you know, Chloe was that voice in that area. So I'm glad to see she's, you know, taking those standards down there.
So interesting to hear her talk about Mark Torcaso as well, and his approach to coaching and his approach to each individual player within that Western United side. And as we have a look at the poll in a sec, Kat, in terms of the Coach of the Month nominees, that difference between, say, Ante Juric and his approach to communication with each individual player and the team as a whole, to the likes of Mark Torcaso is such an interesting one too.
Yeah, and I love the way Chloe spoke about him, and I think that's exactly what Chloe needs at this point in her career. And I was intrigued at first as to why Chloe chose to go down to Melbourne instead of back to Sydney. And you know, when I heard her in the All Access, the A-League's All Access, you know, it was just such a mature decision from Chloe. And I wouldn't be upset if Torcaso got the Coach of the Month at all, because you know, I think he deserves it as well. But yeah, it's great to see good managers in the league for sure.
Well, speaking of that poll, you're going to love this. It's 29.2% shared for Mark Torcaso and Ante Juric.
There you go.
And they're leading the way. And then you've got Jeff Hopkins and Dario Vidosic just behind on 20.
It's all pretty close, though.
It's super
They all
close.
deserve it, you know.
Yeah, it's honestly great to see such a somewhat even distribution of votes, because it is a real testament to the season so far and the way these different teams have been performing.
And indeed, Teo, how tight it is on the ladder. When you look at that top four, certainly the top three, a whole heap remains on the line. A whole lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah, and this game tonight between Adelaide and Canberra is so important for Adelaide to bounce back. I mean, we're seeing Western here being held by Wellington. Melbourne victory, dropping points to Perth yesterday. Adelaide sitting at home watching this game, okay, maybe this lets us off the hook just a little bit for the slip up against Newcastle last week. But Canberra have been really good this season, and I think will play in a style on a hot day that will keep Adelaide really accountable. And Adelaide, the goals have dried up for them. They haven't scored more than one in a game this year, and they are wasteful in front of goal. They're not converting the chances that they are creating. So I think that, you know, if Western go on and get a late winner here and are able to emerge from a tough test with all 3 points, that puts the pressure right back on Adelaide making the top four.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure's on Adelaide, and, you know, if they don't get a result tonight, you know, they're at risk of sort of falling behind the pack a bit, which isn't where they'd want to be, especially, you know, with such a strong squad that they do have. And the only, you know, saving grace is that the comp is a bit longer now. So, but Canberra are looking good, Teo. So it'll be a very, very tough game for Adelaide.
And they're looking good with both Kennedy Faulkner, their Canadian centre-back, and Cheng Shu Wu, their Chinese attacker, out of the team injured. So, I mean, and my biggest question mark over Canberra this season was the depth of the squad. A lot of inexperienced players who had never played in the A-League Women's before. But Negos Popovic has put together a very competitive team. And we were talking about how surprised we were about making the sub, you know, Madison McComiskey coming off for Ellen Gett, who was recast as a centre-back last week. But she spoke during the week and said that she loved it and loved playing next to Ellie Brush and getting to learn from her. So it seems as though even when they take a risk, Canberra, I mean, yes, they lost last week, but they lost due to Casey Dumont performing a masterclass. And any other day, they score 3 or 4 goals and they get a great win on the road. So I think there's a lot of belief coming out of Canberra at the moment. And I guess, you know, this is a team that used to be the standard bearer of this league. They've since fallen away. They've made finals, once in the last 5 seasons. And so now anything that's even sort of rallying them back up the table, it's a great sign for them.
Yeah, they're sort of the quiet achievers, Canberra, I feel like. But they're doing really well, and whatever is happening down there as well is special too. So, you know, I think Canberra, I think they could get the result against Adelaide tonight.
Let's have a look at where our games currently stand here on Dub Zone this Arvo. Our 2 simultaneous kickoffs in Newcastle at number 2 Sports Ground. It is the visitors, Sydney FC, who lead 4-2 midway through the second half. And at City Vista, it remains 0-0 between Western and Wellington. Do Western start to hit the panic button ever so slightly now, Teo? They're yet to drop points in their A-League women's life. Is this the day they do it to Wellington, who are way down the ladder?
Well, I think if there's a team you can go for it against and take some liberties and some risks against, it is Wellington. I mean, 4 shots today, none on target, XG of 0.09. So they've created nothing in an attacking sense. Yes, we're singing their praises because they're not being dominated in the game, but it's not so much a game that they're going to score on the counter or against the run. So on the bench, they've got Franny Iamano, they've got Alexandra Sinclair, both of them pretty inexperienced in terms of this level. A-League Women's, Alexandra Sinclair being, you know, the veteran, Franny Iamano, you know, youngish player in her early 20s now, but hasn't played a great deal. It's not like they can turn to the bench and find another striker out and out there. But Sinclair's a quick winger. Maybe they have a look at her. Iamano, I'm not so sure. The other outfielder they've got is Natasha Dakic, who's a centre-back. So I think the 11 on the field are the ones that are going to have to take responsibility, Teresa.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of where they set up and who they throw forward and who actually starts taking the risks and maybe leaving the back gate open for Wellington if they're good enough.
Yeah, look, they might be a bit thin on options there, but they have been putting Sinclair on. I know they did last game for a substantial amount of time. So I think in the next 5 to 10, they'll look to make a change. I think they have to because nothing's sort of happening at the moment. So this gives whoever's on the bench a good opportunity to come on and make a statement.
That game, Adelaide-Canberra, a little bit later on this evening. Kick-off after 7. It was due to be 4 o'clock, but it is very hot there in Adelaide today. Adelaide legend Robbie Cornthwaite hosts the Players Pod, Kat, and I know that's one that caught your eye this week with Tash Rigby featuring. She joined us on Dub Zone last week, and what an interesting episode it was of the Players Pod.
Super fascinating, and I think something that is really unique about women's football, and it definitely is also a sign of, I suppose, the fact that we're quite a few years behind the men's football, is that a lot of women have other jobs and that they're not just footballers, they're nurses, or they're, in Natasha Rigby's case, they've worked at a prison and done all kinds of things there. So this article is really interesting. She talks about how she worked at a prison during COVID, and it was a women's security prison. So obviously something a little bit different, and that's really advanced her leadership skills and her confidence. And I think it complements also the story of Casey Dumont being a nurse as well. And that's something that we see a lot of, is these players have other things going on too. So T, I know that you were also, and you are a teacher by trade, and you would be playing for Sydney FC on the weekends and then show up Monday to Friday and teach kids, which I just love.
It's only now that, I've had the time away from football and teaching this year that I just pinch myself, and you just get into sort of autopilot where, you go to train, you get up early, training, you whiz to work, you work all day, you get home, you eat well, you go to sleep, and it's just, it's not an easy thing to do, and I definitely can relate and empathise with the players that have to do this, in their careers now. But wow, it's in a prison. Yeah, I'd love to hear some stories.
I know.
From that,
she opened up about the experiences and said it made her a better leader. Just reading verbatim from some of the articles, she said, it's funny, having worked in sport and recreation management the entire time that she played for Glory, when COVID hit, she couldn't do that anymore. So she couldn't fall back on her sport anymore and had to find up something else, and found this recreation officer at a maximum security prison, which was quoted from her as a wild experience, which I think it would be so different to what she's used to. But you can imagine how you might learn some skills that you can then bring to the football pitch and do things a little differently. Did you find as a teacher that changed the way that you were with leadership, or the way that you might naturally be a little bit more bossy and want to tell people what to do? Or were you quite a different person on the pitch?
It's funny you say that, Kat. Definitely I've taken skills from teaching into football, but, after playing, people think I yell at the kids a lot, but it's just so different. I think I'm much calmer in the classroom than I actually am on the field.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
But there are other skills you definitely take into account and use in both areas. So it's a strength, but at the same time you think, if only I could sort of just commit to football, it'd be an amazing thing. And we are working towards that.
Absolutely.
That's a really interesting point, because we spoke to Ray Dower about the pathway for female coaches. Obviously, as a legend of the game, Sydney FC legend, it'd be wonderful to see you connected with the Sky Blues again in the future. How much do you have to weigh up that full-time employment option that you have through teaching and all of the other family and life commitments that you have with your love of the game?
Well, I'd love to still be playing there, but, it's hard now. I've got a family and just football doesn't sort of fund that financially. It's hard to do, and I'd love to coach as well one day. But again, I've got that hesitancy. But, hearing Ray speak, it's definitely promising, and I'd love to look into that more because it's definitely something I'd love to do in the future.
Those pathways, the scholarship, the 2032 scholarship that Ray spoke about, so important, Teo, to give people that opportunity to invest in their football career, and so that we don't lose the football brains, the likes of Teresa Polias, to the game.
But, I mean, it's also incumbent on the clubs not to use the scholarship as a way to just save money off the bottom of the balance sheet. I mean, it was a great point Ray made about resourcing at clubs. I mean, we've had some questions come in on Twitter through the game about, why isn't there a female coach in the Coach of the Month nominees? The reality is that, Kat Smith, Nat Lawrence, Ash Wilson, they're all down the bottom of the league. If you had to pick the clubs that are, to use a broad term, taking this league seriously, I think Newcastle and Western Sydney Wanderers would be down the bottom of that league at the moment. So it's all well and good to have a woman as sort of the lightning rod and the figurehead of your program, but have you built a program that is a job of choice that, people are knocking on the door, banging down the door to be part of? I can tell you, everyone wants to be the coach of Melbourne City. A lot of people would love to succeed Jeff Hopkins when he's had his time at Melbourne Victory. But, are they lining up to coach Western Sydney Wanderers? I mean, or has Kat Smith followed Catherine Cannulli in taking on a poison chalice?
Well, great point, Teo. And Wanderers had a club legend coaching last season, and no disrespect at all to Kat Smith because she's a great coach. But, why weren't more resources put into keeping a club legend and helping the women's team a bit more? I think clubs need to do more in maintaining a relationship with past players, and whether that's mentoring or coaching, it's, I think, so important to learn from past players. I certainly did when I was playing. I had massive respect for the players past, and I just feel like clubs aren't doing enough to keep that link there.
And we have had a goal, Teo, as we watch number 2 Sports Ground. Perhaps it is back at City Vista that we need to head.
Okay, is this Wellington's moment to win a game this season? It looks as though it's a free kick to Western United. So here comes the set piece. Dropped into the penalty area. It's a header and looping in. TJ Vlanich. Would you believe it? Vlanich subbed on. It's just the second time she has scored in the A-League Women's. It's her first in Western United colours, and on a windy day, that was a difficult set piece. We said set pieces might be their avenue to goal, but we didn't think it'd be TJ on the end of them, and goes over to the sideline to celebrate with Mark Torcaso. And that is Western United 1, Wellington Phoenix 0. Wow, they get the goal.
What a substitution from Torcaso, but
grab the trophy, grab the trophy, go to the month trophy.
But they're making us look like experts
after that.
Yeah, look, came from a set piece as we discussed. So Western United made us look good in that they sort of delivered on what we said.
And yet another late goal, as we've seen them do so many times this season. 3 points not in the bag yet, but they are yet to drop points in the league.
They are yet to drop points, and we see them make a sub here. Natasha Dakic coming on for Amy Medwin, and I imagine that will be a very defensive sub because Medwin was playing further up the pitch. Dakic is a centre back. So what they might do actually is Vlanich will drop back into left back, and they might play a back 5 now with Natasha Dakic slotting in there in the middle. But I guess, they found a way, and, this ground, Melbourne Victory came out of round 1 saying they were beaten by the wind as much as they were beaten by Western United. Wellington, they can't talk, obviously. They play at the Cake Tin, which has its own issues.
Yes.
But, I mean, really, Western United, they are building a home ground advantage in more ways than one here. And you saw that one just loop, the free kick on the breeze and the way it dropped into the back of the net. TJ Vlanich, she'll just be thrilled because the only goal she'd previously scored in the A-League Women's was the game that Melbourne City had to move to their training facility due to Amy Park being unavailable.
Yes, I do remember that.
And she scored in that game. So this is the first game she's actually scored at a proper venue, that fans have a seat at. Because I went to their training facility for that game, and fans were actually behind a fence. They had to watch the game through a fence. It was ridiculous. But I mean, now this is a great moment for her. 32 years of age, 59th appearance today, and just her second goal.
Yeah, it's great for TJ Vlanich, and I'm just impressed with the way Western United handled the whole game, but particularly the second half where it's 0-0. They didn't lose patience. They were so calm. Torcaso makes a simple sub, changes things, tweaks things a little bit, and to their advantage, they've scored now, and this is where they now look comfortable, and they're just going at Wellington now.
Well, Wellington have to attack, and that's something that they just haven't done all day.
Yeah, and look,
as
it
yet
makes them vulnerable to goals, and it's happened again.
Credit to Mel Taranto for the assist, and hey, credit to Chloe Legerz. I mean, she spoke about the belief within the team and what they needed to do better. It's a very low percentage chance that they've scored from. I mean, for all the chances that they've created, I mean, that header goes in, once out of 50?
Yeah, definitely. But look, they make their own luck, Western United. And I know we've talked about Chloe not playing today, but I'm convinced, and I know for a fact, that she still has a lot of influence on this game off the field. She'd be chatting to her players, pumping people up, reassuring players, giving tips. She's just that kind of leader. So
yeah, I think you made the point that she would have gone in and given her 2 cents.
100%.
And I think we've just seen the influence of that.
Yeah, definitely. Chloe, coach of the month.
Confidence is such a big thing, though, isn't it? I mean, even as an outside neutral observer, I'm watching this game thinking Western United will get it done here, because that's what they've done in each of the opening games of the A-League Women's so far. From a player's perspective, is there that innate kind of confidence that grows throughout a season when you have pulled results out of the fire a number of times?
Yeah, I mean, that good energy, you kind of get in a habit of winning, and Western United have managed to do that. And it's amazing. You know, they're new to the competition. They've got mostly NPL-based players, and they've just continued to astonish me.
Yeah, once again, a testament to
the whole
talent
setup,
in
the whole
NPL
setup,
and
the whole
everything that they're doing at Calder United, and how that's trickled into what they're doing now in the Liberty A-Leagues. But there was a comment from Christian Marchetti just saying, "What a shame for Wellington. By my understanding, that was only Western's 5th shot on target as well." Is that Teo approved that stat?
I'll come back to you on that.
Okay, cool. Not sure about Edwards' positioning. Seems like she expected the ball to drop towards the back post, and maybe the wind has misled her. So once again, we see this narrative around the wind, and we know that can definitely influence the game. I've played in windy conditions, and it messes you up completely. It can be the total advantage or a disadvantage, and
and there were a lot of bodies stacked, in the box there as well. So whether her vision was blocked and she didn't sort of see the ball come back the other way, not sure. But, still credit to Western United. You create your own luck. So they've done that again.
It is 5 shots on target.
Okay.
That's correct.
Amazing. They've got their stats from the same place as Teo, which is very important. And Joey Lynch has also said Tall Girls United take a lead 1-0. And that tweet just left as I was reading it, and now I'm trying to find it.
I think he was saying she's not actually the tallest player.
No.
Tall
So
Girls
she did
United
well,
take a 1-0 lead over Wellington, even if technically TJ Blanich isn't the tallest.
No,
big effort.
Look, we were talking about, what was the stat that we were talking about off air about vertical something?
Vertical leap.
Vertical leap. Now, I feel like we're in this evolution of football where it's like there's a stat about everything, and there's a vertical leap stat.
Just warn me before we bring too much other off-air chat onto the show.
All
though,
good.
Please.
That's all. I promise.
We think you've committed it all to memory. We think we can ask you about 2009 and you'll be able to tell us the stats from that game, as you've done to Portea all afternoon.
Now, so here's the question. Midweek, they play Sydney FC. TJ Vlanich has been sent off 2 of the last 3 times that Melbourne City played against Sydney FC for fouls specifically on Courtney Vine.
Wow.
Do they play her? I mean, she's come off the bench here. She's scored the match-winning goal. It'd stand to reason that you might start the next game. But given her checkered history against Courtney Vine, do they have to factor that in and maybe leave her out?
Yeah, that's...
Because you think they got sent off in the home and away season 2 seasons ago, and then got sent off in the semi-final last season when Sydney FC came back from 2-0 down to win 4-2.
That could potentially happen.
Do you think that is really a consideration?
Definitely. Within games, your wingers could swap sides if you want, someone to target a particular side or person based on certain attributes.
I mean, they could play Vlanich in the front 3 and play Amy Medwin at left back if they want to start her. I just think about that matchup. Courtney Vine running at TJ Vlanich is probably the number one thing. Ante Juric would just start laughing if he walked out there and saw her again and said, "Oh, well, Courtney, go do what you do."
I think Ante will back Courtney against anyone, to be honest. I just don't know. I know Vlanich scored today. I just don't know if that'll warrant her a start next week, or what's the reason she's actually on the bench. Is it coming back from injury, or is it, Torcaso prefers someone over her? That's the real question here, I think.
As a player, though, when you have that history and you recognise it, does Courtney Vine go out there knowing that a little bit of niggle can go a long way in this game?
Well, definitely, and even Princess against her, though.
It's not niggle, it's just pure speed.
It's
just Vines away. Vlanic
It'll be in
fouls her
Vlanic's
late,
head.
And the referees, to be fair, have refereed it well. I mean, we see a lot of tackles that sometimes don't get sanctioned, particularly when a referee has a red or yellow sort of decision. And in a high pressure situation in last year's semi-final, the ref made a great call.
Yeah. Look, football's a psychological game as well. So for Vlanic, will it be in her mind going into it? So. And for me, it doesn't matter whether it's Vine or Princess Abini. Both players are pretty hard to tackle. So, it'll be interesting to see what Western United do come Wednesday.
Grace Gill, who I think is joining us here on Dub Zone next week, saying, Kat, there's just not enough popcorn this afternoon.
There's just
so much action.
But that's been from the get-go. In the first 19 seconds, we saw a goal. And then since then, there's been loads of action. And I think what's really special about the Western United Wellington game is that for all that there haven't been goals, there's been this anticipation that Western United were going to do something, because this is, as we've said, this is how they've been playing this season, and they are the definition of coming in clutch.
Yeah.
They just know how to get that last minute goal, which if anything is almost better, because then they only have to hold that for 10 or 15 minutes once they've scored.
And Neve said it before, you almost sort of know it's coming. You're just so calm about it, and it's happened again. So.
Getting close to full time at both of these games. Teo, where do we stand?
Yeah, so 4-2 for Sydney FC, 1-0 for Western United. But in the second half, Newcastle 5 shots, 3 on target. Sydney FC, the only shot on target they've had was Princess Abini's penalty to make the score 4-2. So Newcastle, the first 10 minutes has decided this game. Newcastle have had the better numbers ever since then, but Sydney have been in a position where they could manage their advantage. Let's go to City Vista and see this one to the finish line, because there's 5 additional minutes and Wellington have a set piece. Don't forget, they scored from a corner in Wellington against Western, but Hilary Beale is safe as houses here. And that was a sharp strike, but Beale able to collapse onto the ball. And as we've seen late in the game against Perth last week, Teresa, Western know how to manage the game to the finish line here. And I guess if there's one team you can afford to go a bit more defensive against and invite on, it's a Wellington team that have had 5 shots, none on target today.
Yeah, look, definitely Western United know how to manage games, and they've had experience in doing it. That was actually a good delivery there at pace, nice and flat, but, credit to United's keeper there in collecting that
Again,
pretty
in
easily.
the second half, Western have had 60% possession, 7 shots, 3 on target. Wellington Phoenix just the 2 shots, neither of them on target. So I think the one thing other teams might watch out of this, whether it's Perth for the second time around, Brisbane, Canberra, the other mid-table, Newcastle, the other mid-table rivals, I still don't think they'll look at Western United as, they're a top team, they're intimidating, they're on the march. I mean, Melbourne City are blowing teams away. Sydney FC are blowing teams away. Whereas Melbourne Victory and Western United, they're grinders. And I think they're gettable. And, we've seen today Western with the ball are not as good a team as Western when they can hit on the counter and don't have the ball.
Yeah, and that's why I'm excited to see Western United go up against Sydney midweek. It'll be such a good test for both teams, really, but I think more so Western United. And teams are still figuring Western United out. They're a new team, and often, when teams are comfortable not having the ball, they're hard to break down. So at the moment, no one's figured them out. It'll be interesting to see them against a really creative and dominant side like Sydney or a City.
There's a comment from George G saying, has there been a team with a better start to a debut season in any sport in Australia ever than Western United?
City when they came into it, I
Melbourne
assume.
City won all 12 of their home and away games in their inaugural season, and then they won the semi-final on penalties, so technically a draw, and then they won the grand final, and then they, I think, won the first 4 in the next season, so I think the streak was 18 or 19 in a row. So if Western United was to win 13 in a row, I guess because Melbourne City technically won their 13th game in a penalty shootout rather than within the 90 minutes, Western would have the best start of any team.
Wow, there you go.
So still a little way to go.
Yeah, 13,
and it'll be hard
13.
to go a whole season with, so many more games as well. So, they'll be aiming for the 13.
Absolutely.
Heading into that clash with Sydney FC, Ante Jurich's side goes in having scored 4 goals, perhaps a couple more in stoppage time, you never know. But 4 goals 2 weeks in a row. It's been incredible form from Sydney FC.
Yeah, I still don't think they're playing their 100% best football, which is a positive too, because they're still going on the up. But what's impressed me most about Sydney is their intensity lately. I don't know what it's put down to. I think Ante came out and said, he put all the girls on notice and they've responded. I don't think they were playing that terribly to begin given a warning like that. But they've been really impressive and the only way is up for Sydney. There's still a lot of improvement left in them.
Well, we just saw full time, so 4-2 the final score for the season, 17 goals scored, 4 against. Melbourne City 18-4-5 against. So their goal difference is now the same. Melbourne City, if they were to take care of Western Sydney tomorrow, would go back to the top of the league because Western United 14 goals for, 5 against. So even if Western score another one here late, Sydney FC will be top of the ladder overnight.
So it's all going to come down to when these teams play each other. It's going to be so exciting and it's all coming up, isn't it?
Yeah, which does mean that these games midweek might be mid-season, but they have the potential to have big consequences.
There's 6-pointers, so to speak, aren't they, Teo?
Yeah, I think if Western United win again, and it means they will have beaten all of last year's top 4.
It's huge.
So
it's huge.
I think you got to give them the respect that their performances, their results deserve. The performance today hasn't been stellar. It certainly hasn't been their best, but I'm not sure they will necessarily mind that. If you offered them not the greatest pitch, windy conditions, hot day, I think Western are kind of that anytime, anywhere team. I mean, they've already been away to Wellington, away to Adelaide, away to Perth. They've won them all. And you know that back in the old W League where you didn't have a complete home and away, if you copped 3 away trips like that in the one season,
tough.
You'd think that the draw had done you no favours at all.
Definitely. Absolutely. What they've done, and they're building that brand of being battlers and scrapping results, and it's just amazing what they're doing. And come midweek, that'll give us a lot more answers, won't it?
Fans love that as well, don't they? As we hear the full-time whistle blow at City Vista, that connection to your fans, those gritty wins, is exactly what Western United have done today.
Yeah, and they'll appreciate the support that they've got today because they've really had to earn that win. A goal 12 minutes from the finish. TJ Vlanic is the match winner, and Western United, I think they get out of jail today. They get away with one. They do the season double over Wellington Phoenix, having beaten them. But 6 from 6 points in the bank and bring on that game on Wednesday night against Sydney FC.
Huge result.
This little thing. That I think seeing Torcaso's girls come in clutch like that.
If they beat Sydney, Cat, you can give it to them, okay?
Yeah, cool. It's like we have some really great unique trophies in this league. Don't we?
I really like it, although I do look like a Christmas tree when I hold it.
It's the right time of the year for it, Kat. And you're on the money with your tip pre-game, Mark Torcaso, surely in terms of that coach of the month. It was for December, and obviously this is their first game in Jan. But as we wrap up our poll with full-time in both games, surely Mark Torcaso must be there or thereabouts heading into his clash with Ante Juric this week.
Definitely, and I wouldn't be upset if either one got it.
I will check those poll results right now and we'll see. Make sure that there you go. They're on the screen for you to see. So Mark Torcaso is still in the lead there, but I imagine that will change a little bit as the poll is still open for a little while and the votes will change a little bit. But as you can see, it's super tight. It's a reflection of the season so far. December was very exciting. There's no standout coach in the sense that I think you can probably say that 4 or 5 of them have done an outstanding job so far.
Let's have a look at the highlights from number 2 Sports Ground. Teo, Sydney Newcastle, it was a Sydney FC victory, and didn't this one start with an absolute bang?
It did. 19 seconds is all it took. A miss from Taryn King here on the back pass. Madison Haley capitalises, rounds the keeper. And as simple as you like, Sydney FC in the lead. They needed just 2 more minutes to score again. Mackenzie Hawkesby teeing up Sarah Hunter. Newcastle defence absolutely nowhere for that one. And then in the 7th minute, Courtney Vine showing that trademark pace to sprint down the right and play through Mackenzie Hawkesby. And this is a really neat little finish here, getting the angles absolutely spot on for 3-0. Adriana Konyaski would peg a goal back, and this is a really nice move from Newcastle, it must be said. Lucy Johnson releasing Lauren Allen, and rather than bear down on goal, tease it over to Konyaski, who scores her first goal since New Year's Day 2019 in the A-League Women's. That made it 3-1, and then Teresa, we saw in the second half, a goal back for Tara Andrews from a scrap and a Princess Avini penalty, leaving Newcastle unable to complete the comeback.
Yeah, it was two different weather conditions in both halves, wasn't it? Almost like a completely new game. But yeah, Sydney dominant throughout the match. Just on that Konjarski goal, Lauren Allen could have taken the shot herself and just maturely cut it across for Konjarski. So nice goal there. Lovely ball threaded through as well from Lucy Johnson. But yeah, just wasn't enough, was it? Sydney too dominant today.
Sarah Hunter has been good enough to join us from number 2 Sports Ground. Now, Sarah, congratulations on the victory. What a start it was from your side. Talk us through those opening 6 minutes of the game to begin with.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was going on either, but we were pretty hot off the blocks today. Yeah, Maddie sort of pounced on that first one, and then we sort of just all gained a bit of momentum from there, and we were just all wanting to score. We were lining up a bit there in the first 10 minutes, but they pegged one back, which sort of checked us back into reality. But yeah, it was a really, really fun 10 minutes, yeah.
We can hear the wind there on mic in the background. How tough were conditions in Newcastle today?
Yeah, they were pretty on and off. We had wind, rain, bit of sun, so yeah, we got a bit of everything, which was fun. So yeah, it was challenging, but we sort of got to deal with that. And Ante was really, strong on not getting caught up in the conditions and just playing our football and being the best team on the day.
Hey Sarah, it's T here. First of all, congrats on the win. I think you're in spectacular form. You're doing me wonders for fantasy, so thank you. Have you got what do you put your excellent form down to? The midfield's working incredibly well and intense. What do you put it down to?
I think there's a few things. I think definitely Ante's been really, really good with me, sort of given me the motivation and, the drive to be the best player I can be. And I think that's really been really good to have a coach like that. And I think also all the girls have been, as you know, super, super driven. And I sort of took a year to get used to that. And now I'm sort of definitely a part of that mentality. And I think the mentality here is just a level above anything I've ever been at. And I think you see every girl that comes into this squad just goes to that next level, and I think that's a credit to this coaching staff and all the girls that have been here for a long time.
Sarah, that sort of class of midfielders that went to the Under-20 World Cup, yourself, Hannah Lowry, Paige Zoyce, you're all having great seasons, and it feels like there's a new generation coming through. I know you're all competing for your own individual team's interests, but do you feel a sense that there is a bit of generational change going on in this league at the moment, and we're starting to see new players become household names?
Yeah, I love seeing all my friends getting on the goal sheet and sort of making a name for themselves and being main players in their teams. I think that's really cool, and I'm really glad to see. I know the potential of all those girls in the under-20s team. So yeah, I think it was just a matter of time before they got their chance and I got my chance. And yeah, I know we've got lots of talent from that age group, and I'm really excited to see everyone else do really well and hopefully push for the senior Matildas one day.
And the Sydney FC documentary showed us what an Ante Juric team talk is like. But did he do anything different today to inspire this 3 goals in 10 minutes, or was it just one of those days where everything was perfect?
Yeah, I think he came and talked about the NFL player that suffered a cardiac arrest. So that was sort of quite emotional. I think we're a very, very tight-knit team, and so we fight for each other, but that's sort of pulled on our emotional side, and we do everything. A lot of our hard work goes down to our love for the girls around us and the love for Ante, and he's sort of like a father figure for a lot of us. So that emotional side probably kick-started us in that 10 minutes. So yeah, I think he pulls different things out of the hat sometimes. So that was definitely a good one today.
Incredible. Thank you for the insight.
Yeah. Sarah, well done today. We had a few comments on Twitter saying Sarah Hunter in the Hunter. You were just meant to score today. It was destined. It was written in the stars. But we've also got the Coach of the Month award, which is happening at the moment, and people can put in their votes. And obviously, Ante is up for that award. You mentioned it briefly just in your response, but what is it about Ante that makes him special for you, and why would he be worthy of that Coach of the Month award?
Yeah, I think you don't see a lot of what the coaches do on the pitch, because it's obviously us girls going out there. But Ante he's just so good at managing girls and being a leader and getting the most out of your players, which I think is sort of, once you get to that top level of sport, is the key, getting the most out of your players on game day. And I think he does that so well. As he gets success every year, he has to be doing something right, and I think he goes a little bit under the radar. I think the whole team sometimes does as well, and we just get consistent success. And before me, he's just made so many Matildas, made so many stars, and I think that just goes to show, he's just different, I think, yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your insights as Savo. Congrats on the win. We'll leave you to enjoy it with your teammates.
Thank you. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Sarah Hunter joining us there. And what an incredible insight, T, into what Ante Juric spoke to the team about before the game that had them come out and start in such a driven manner.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely pulled on the heartstrings, bringing in an emotional side to the game and, sport in general and life in general, really. I can just imagine what was said. And
For anyone not familiar, a player from the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday, Australian time, suffered a cardiac arrest on the field, on the gridiron, and has since been responsive in hospital, but actually received CPR on the field. So, I mean, that's a high-risk strategy for a pre-game team talk. I mean, especially with Madison Haley there, who is actually the daughter of an NFL Hall of Famer there in the dressing room. So would have absolutely been across that story during the course of the week. But I guess that's sometimes the lever you pull in order to, find the right emotion within your team and look at the performance that it resulted in. You can't do it every week, but you do it at the right time. That's what can happen.
Yeah, and look, it's, I guess, the way he delivered that, in what context as well, and it obviously worked for the team. But Ante does have a way with his words, and he is that gentle giant and friendly figure that girls are just very comfortable around. And that brings out the best in a lot of players, and Sarah Hunter's a perfect example of that.
We've had some incredible insights from the A-League women's players who have joined us across the course of today. We'll have TJ Vlanich on the show very soon, but before we do, Teo, talk us through the highlights of this victory for Western United. They continue to take every point they can out of every game they play, and today it was against Wellington.
Yeah, and it was a hard-fought win today. Western United, 13 shots, 5 on target. The Wellington Phoenix, 5 shots, but none of them on target. Significantly, final third entry, 62-52. So this was not Western bombarding Wellington and knocking on the door all game. This was far more of a midfield battle to Wellington's credit. The only issue is Wellington couldn't get anything going in attack themselves, Teresa, and it meant that as soon as Western scored, as late as it was, there was only ever going to be one winner.
Yeah, you're right, Teo, and it's hard times at the moment for Wellington in terms of creating and scoring, but on a positive side, there were improvements, particularly defensively. Apart from that set piece, they did pretty well for most of the game in keeping Western United out.
And we saw there TJ Vlanich, a bit of foreshadowing there with that looping header, which was well wide of the target, but later on in the game, it was this free kick from Mel Taranto, and Vlanich, just a spinning, difficult ball. Reminds me a lot of that goal Belgium scored against Japan in the 2018 World Cup. You might remember when they came from 2-0 down. Sorry, just a random...
You're asking me?
Random memory unlocked.
Toby Alderweireld. All right. The final score, 1-0. Wellington, back to the drawing board again for them. But Western United, hey, they roll on. 6 wins from 6.
6 from 6. You cannot argue with that, can you?
Let's speak to TJ Vlanich now, who entered the fray in the second half and scored the crucial goal for West United. TJ, thank you so much for joining us. What were your instructions as you headed out there to try and break this one open?
The instructions were just to get out there and get forward as much as possible, get as many shots on target as possible, and just bombard the front or their back line and our front.
You're absolutely able to do that. Is there a confidence within this Western United side that even as you headed into that final 15 or so minutes today, that you will find a goal, you will find a way to get it done?
Yeah, definitely. This team is like no other. There's a real, off the field, there's a real fighting spirit, and everyone works really hard for one another. And I think that shows on the field, given our last 3 games have been won in the dying minutes of the game. I credit to the way that we hold ourselves and the way that we fight for each other. I don't think there was any, for me personally, there was no doubt that we were going to get a goal. It was just a matter of when we were going to get the goal.
Hey TJ, it's Teresa here. Congratulations on yet another win and a goal to boot. You've got Sydney FC midweek. Are you guys looking at that as like a game of the season? How are you approaching that game?
I think the beauty here, at least with us, is that we take every game as it comes. It's going to be tough because we're going to have, I think it's 3 games within 7 or 8 days, which by no means is an easy task, especially against a team like Sydney. But you know, we've finished with Wellington now, and I think the focus for the next 2 days will be Sydney, and we just have to approach it like we have every other game. It's obviously going to be a tough game, but I mean, I don't think there's any doubt that we can get the win.
TJ, your only other goal in the A-League Women's was the match which Melbourne City played at the training ground. How nice is it now to have scored at a proper stadium? You must be thrilled about that.
Thanks, Teo. I can always rely on you to pump me up. Training ground. Oh, yeah, I remember, against Perth. Well, you know, when the coach gives me a chance to get up front and show what I can do, I think the big thing with me now is that I'm a little bit older and I'm a little bit more confident. And I wasn't those things when I was younger. So, yeah, I mean, just given a chance, I'm just going to give it all I've got and get my butt up the line as much as I can and provide for the team. And I think today I had a fire in my belly coming off a little bit of a groin strain. Not playing last week, I had a point to prove, and hopefully I did that.
Well, speaking of points to prove, you get to resume your duel with Courtney Vine during the week. You've seen red cards the last couple of times you've played against her. How ready are you for this showdown?
And yet again, Teo, thanks for the pump up. Like Courtney Vine's a great player. She's got pace. You know, she's smart in terms of getting in front of me when I'm in stride and not much I can do. But no, it's going to be good. Like I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I'm playing on the wing, but we'll see.
TJ, we had a comment saying "Tall Girls United," but you're not all the tallest girls, are you? Look, I'm 5'4". I don't know. I don't think you're as tall as I am. How did it feel scoring that goal today? And the way that you scored it was beautiful. That assist from Toronto was unreal.
These big quads got to be used for something, and maybe it's Pops United instead of Tall Girls. I think a few of us have got, we got height in our team, but also we got a bit of power. Felt good. Just jumped up and hoped for the best. Didn't really think much of it. I was like, just thank you, thanks for that. Teo, take notes.
TJ, thank you so much for joining us. You've withstood the Wellington Phoenix onslaught and the Teo Palazzeri onslaught, and we appreciate your time this Arvo.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you.
Well done, mate. TJ Blanich joining us there. Teo, we want people to continue to come on the show, mate.
Sorry for remembering stuff.
No. I feel like the rest of us are goldfish, and you just have this mind that's a trap that can take us back anywhere, anytime.
Look, fair play to TJ there. You know, I think that at times I absolutely was in commentary for both the games where she got sent off against Courtney Vine and was critical of it. But fair enough. And, you know, she gets a chance to prove the point. She can let the football do the talking, and I'm glad that she gave it back as well.
She absolutely did.
You know what? You just need to remember, Taylor's going to remember everything that we do as well.
Yes.
It's only a matter of time before this happens to all of us.
Yeah,
Pick your battles.
Remember that time 11 years ago that you said, what about for you heading into that game midweek? It is absolutely primed to be a cracker.
It is. It's a top of the table clash. And yeah, it'll give us a lot of answers to questions we've been asking of both teams, really. So I can't wait. It's going to be a cracker.
As we have a look at the results of the round thus far, Teo, talk us through these, because it started last night with a draw between Melbourne Victory and Perth Glory, but now there's been some movement at the top of the table.
Yeah, it really was Forza NPL Victoria yesterday, because Alana Janchevsky and Paige Zoyce scored on opposite sides for Victory and Perth, and then Newcastle today rushed by Sydney FC, who were 3-0 up within 7 minutes. The final score 4-2. Western United, TJ Blanich, the hero, a 1-0 win against Wellington Phoenix, and then later tonight, 7:30 p.m, you'll be watching on 10 Play and Paramount Plus for Adelaide United versus Canberra United. And tomorrow afternoon, join me and Grace Gill for Western Sydney versus Melbourne City. And that is at 4 p.m. If you can't get out to the ground, make sure you're watching.
I just hope TJ is still listening and hearing you call her the hero of the hour there at City Vista. We do now have Sydney FC and Western United on top of the A-League women's ladder. Teo, Melbourne City will be aware of that movement, won't they, heading into their clash tomorrow?
They will, because a win by any score will put them back on top of the league. If they were to become the first team other than Wellington to drop points to Western Sydney Wanderers, that'd be huge. I mean, we have seen Perth take points off Victory. We nearly saw Wellington take points off Western. It is a longer season. It is no longer a super series. It is a proper grind, and this is going to become more and more of a story after that initial burst of energy wears out. Your squad depth gets tested. This is now where we're going to start seeing upset results, and hey, we might even see Canberra, Perth, Newcastle, Brisbane, a team from the bottom half of the ladder, make that late season run, as so often happens in the A-League women.
Canberra play tonight, T, up against Adelaide United in Adelaide. What's your tip for that one?
I'm going to say Canberra for that.
Canberra?
I just think Canberra are in better form than Adelaide.
Are you two about to disagree again?
Is it a last minute
Please
debate?
You've got 30 seconds.
I mean, if Adelaide don't win today, they are on fraud watch as a team.
Big call. Clip that up.
I mean,
now.
it's a bit
Stick
early
it
in my
on
view for that,
socials.
but I just don't think Adelaide are in form, that's all.
I think we could continue. Can we just get the boxing gloves out?
We're
Team
remembering
Teo, Team Teresa.
We'll remember this one for the next episode.
We'll know after tonight. So,
Where the fraud watch is really a thing. Teo Palizzeri, Kat Haddad, Teresa Polias, thank you so much for your company this arvo.
Thank you.
Thank you for your company at home as well. We've absolutely loved having you a part of Dub Zone. Thank you for using that hashtag Dub Zone all afternoon. Enjoy the clash between Adelaide and Canberra tonight. And we cannot wait to see you right back here on the couch next weekend. See you soon.